The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised.
Oh man, there's got to be something to listen to on this dial.
This message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere. It is speculated that these objects are of extraterrestrial origin. The broadcast will quiet at this time for your safety.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays, as we light the void with Joe Root on Spaced Out Radio.
Told all the lies to myself while sleepwalking through it all.
You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void, on Facebook at Lighting the Void, and you can call into tonight's show at 501-777-5631. You can also follow Joe at spacedoutradio.com.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as done.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Why don't you talk into the microphone? I got a backup mic right here. Check 1, 2. Testing, testing. Yeah, they both working, and guess what? They don't like no feedback. What's up?
Now, let's fire the show up and light the void on Spaced Out Saturdays with your host, Joe Root.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Saturday. I am your humble host, Joe Roop, and it's good to have you with us. Great to be here, and I'm very honored to have all of you listening, wherever you're listening from across the World Wide Web or on our affiliate stations. Glad to be here on this lovely cold Saturday, January the 13th on into the 14th. Thank you all for joining us wherever you're listening from. Let's welcome in everyone listening on our affiliates, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and The Fringe FM. Now, we rock out every night with Ron Bumblefoot Thal, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Also, you can check us out on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can follow me on Twitter at Lighting the Void as well. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the USA. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you go to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radio. Now, if you want to take part in our show, sign into one of our chat rooms on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, and on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just go to hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and I'll get to your questions in there as well. The call-in number for tonight is 501-777-5631. Love to hear your little voices out there. If you want to call in and ask our guests any questions, you're more than welcome to. Now, if you head over to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. And as of right now, you can go to Spaced Out Radio Store and pick up a T-shirt, poster, or SOR sticker. We also have the Encounter online that deals with everything paranormal. You can check out the latest blog post there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV also have some great video viewing as well. All right. Tonight, we continue our journey down the road of aliens among us. Now, it seems what used to be, a half fantasy is now becoming more true than ever. Preston Dennett joins us tonight to discuss his new book, as well as some other things. His new book, UFOs over Colorado, among many other books he has and things related in the UFO field. Preston is the go-to guy for me when I want to speak to someone who's delving into ufology and close encounters because of the enormous amount of work I know that he puts into it. Now, if you don't know who Preston Dennett is, let me tell you. Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 20 books and more than 100 articles on the UFOs and on the paranormal. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Mysterious Magazine, Ufologist, and others. His writing has been translated into several different languages, including German, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Icelandic. He has appeared on numerous radio shows and television programs, including Midnight in the Desert, Coast to Coast. He's been on the History Channel's Deep Sea UFOs and UFO Hunters. His research has been presented in the LA Times, the LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He's even taught classes on various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. He currently resides in Reseda, California, and you can check out his website at prestondennett.weebly.com. Preston, it's awesome to have you on Spaced Out Saturday. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Man, it's been a while since I've talked to you, and I've been wanting to talk to you since this, since this disclosure.
Yeah,
any solid opinions
full
on
disclosure movement. Pretty interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely. What's your take on it?
Well, there are things I like about it and things I'm a little disappointed. It's nice to hear this subject being put on the mainstream news and treated in a serious way. But I feel like we're being spoon-fed information. Here's one guy, you know what I mean? Here's this Pentagon guy. He's coming out and saying, yeah, UFOs are real, and here's some footage. Look at this footage. It's not bad footage, but I have to tell you, it's not great. Certainly not the best they have.
Yeah, I said the same thing, man. I got a lot of scrutiny about that, But out of all the UFO investigations and reports that you've done, do you have any UFOs or anybody reporting UFOs that look like the one that was in that footage?
Well, there's so many different shapes. It would be hard for me to say. I mean, that footage wasn't really great enough to tell you exactly what shape you're even looking at.
Right. Yeah.
To be honest, but they come in all different shapes. That's one of the things that kind of bothers me and fascinates me about it. Yeah, there's a lot of saucer shapes. You get globes, though. You get triangles, boomerang, really odd shapes, off-centered hexagons and things like this. Just cubes, cylinders. So it's pretty frustrating to try and categorize this stuff.
Sure. Well, we talked about this before the show. I think that the most interesting thing about this is, are we being told the right stuff? Are we, a lot of people are calling this a soft disclosure. But then I watched another video of the pilot talking about an event that he had over the water, which I know that you're currently writing about this, right? UFOs and coming out of the water and stuff. Am I correct on that?
Right. This apparently is a big deal with the military. They've had a lot of encounters like this.
Exactly. So this guy tells us, and I don't know why he didn't talk about it on Fox or CNN. It was some really important information. And yet when he went on Into the Stars, when they talked to him, there was no, like, he just let it all out. Yeah, I followed this craft. We went over the water. This craft was moving around some object that looked like a 747 underwater. I tried to chase, and I'm just really briefing this story down. I tried to chase this thing, and as I chased it, it moved so fast it disappeared, so we decided to go back and look at this UFO that was underwater. and it was gone. And this isn't somebody reporting something that we have no way to base. This is our military reporting this to national news.
Exactly. We've had a lot of military people reporting UFOs privately to UFO researchers, but for them to come on the news and kind of broadcast this, it is, I mean, great news as far as I'm concerned. It's movement. It's something we haven't gotten. There's been almost nothing forthcoming from the government officially on this subject. So this is kind of like a step in the right direction. But yeah, we're being spoon-fed right behind the curtain there. Like I've said, there's an alien craft. I mean, there's alien bodies. We have the best footage. And if they're going to march this out, little bits at a time, well, all right then. But I have to tell you, I've talked to a number of people about this. And this first disclosure made barely a ripple in the public consciousness. I've talked to my brother. He barely heard about it. I've been talking to friends. They're like, yeah, I did think I heard something about it. That's about as far as it went. I mean, it really didn't penetrate. But this is, a serious subject.
Exactly. It is serious. And I'm doing this whole Aliens Among Us thing, kind of like books. Like I'm making parts to it. And I wanted to start it out with Jordan Maxwell because to relate it to back, trying to get him to relate it to ancient history and then bring you on because you have so many cases, especially your latest book, Inside UFOs, the one I've talked to you about already on Lighting the Void. With so many close encounter cases, there's so many cases, but yet, hey, and if I remember correctly, you even had a guy that was in the military, in the Navy, that called in during the show and told us an amazing, incredible story. I never heard anything like it.
That's right, a Navy medic. I've talked to a bunch of Navy guys. They didn't get on the news, but definitely this is something that they're coming out of the woodwork, these whistleblowers, I guess you'd call them.
Now, I want to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it, okay? But, because you got a lot of books for sale, and I am curious about this. Since this disclosure came out, or if I guess I call it disclosure. It's not really disclosure, but that's what everybody was wanting to call it, so I'm going along with it, right? Have you seen an increase in book sales? I mean, are people more interested in this? Is the public that, laughs at us, calls us tinfoil hat people, yada, yada. Are you seeing more sales of books? Are you seeing more people get interested in it, or is it just more of the same?
Well, as far as book sales, I wouldn't be able to tell you for a few months until I get the reports. So I don't know as far as that, but definitely a little bit more interest, it seems like. There's various bits talking on the radio about it. I listened to the radio going to work, the mainstream traffic, and they brought it up. So, yeah, it is making some effect, I think. And as I understand, there's going to be further disclosures from the same sort of pipeline, this group that's focusing on this with Tom DeLonge. But my favorite part of this whole disclosure thing was the White House briefing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, but that was pretty interesting because this reporter asks about Trump's stance on this disclosure. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House spokesperson, is about to answer. And suddenly the reporter's phone, his cell phone, goes off accidentally, interrupting. And she's like, who? Maybe there are already aliens out there among us. A kind of awkward joke. But the problem is, what she says is, well, we're going to have to circle back to this. I don't know what his stance is. She took the question without batting an eye. But what I found interesting is when this reporter asked this question, the first response was a tittering of nervous laughter throughout the White House press room from all the reporters and everyone watching. And until that stops, until people can ask about the subject and not laugh nervously, it's not being taken seriously.
Do you think they laugh nervously from fear, or they laugh nervously because they're not taking it seriously still? I think it's a little bit of fear. I hadn't thought about
that. Yeah, you may be right. I hadn't really thought about that. fear of losing your job or, your reputation. Certainly trying to tackle a subject like this, people have suffered from it. But yeah, I don't know. It's opening a can of worms on either way you look at it.
Well, I can tell you this. It's almost 2020, right? We're almost in the year 2020. And by this time, I thought we would be living in a Back to the Future episode. And I, for sure, thought that, we would know about aliens just a little bit more. And that's why this seems like a soft disclosure. It seems like because after reading your work, I've read your work, I've read Whitley Strieber's work, I've read tons of people's work, and just one little 30-second video of somebody saying, hey, look at this thing. It doesn't fly right, dude. There's a whole fleet of them, man, and that's it. They just don't seem right to me,
It's not going to cut it. Absolutely. I totally agree. What we need, it's plain and simple, and they can do it tomorrow, would be to show us a craft, show us an alien body, and I don't think anything short of that. A piece of metal is not going to do it either. They can point to it and say, hey, look, this is molecularly not made by our process or whatever. It's alien metal. I still don't think that's going to work either.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
And that's probably what they're going to do. That's what I'm guessing. We're going to see a little bit better footage. We're going to see some more people coming out, some very convincing testimony, which is great. I mean, we need this. Perhaps that's what we need to bring the Roswell craft into a museum for everyone to see it without going out of their minds. But
there is a lot of crazy stuff going around saying that this metal made some people that came in contact with it get sick and ill and have psychological episodes. I don't know if you read into that. Do you think there's any truth to that?
Well, the only thing I've heard about that is one UFO that did make people sick. That was, I think, at Area 51, reportedly. I think this came from the Project Serpo book. Len, forget the researcher who brought that out. But I have heard of this. It's not super common, and most people who have gone inside a UFO and come back out are pretty much okay.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about that.
Well, I'm going to ask you this, man, because I've asked everybody since this has happened that I know that's in the UFO field. Last week I asked Whitley Strieber, and I'm going to ask you, since this thing came out, do you feel even the slightest bit vindicated about your work and what you've done?
Absolutely. It's funny to see these mainstream newscasters squirm a little bit and say, well, maybe I shouldn't be laughing anymore. Or perhaps there's something to this. And I'm like, yeah, you're damn right there is. It's time that the subject is taken seriously. I've always thought it was a very serious subject in that it can affect people's lives in a profound way if we were to, put a full disclosure forth.
Yeah, I was thinking that's one of the first things that I thought about, Preston, was how many of us feel a little bit vindicated, even though we know, I mean, this is not exactly what we would call the disclosure that we want, but for the government, okay, so, we've beat this subject into the ground, okay? But let's just realize this, and I want everyone to realize no matter what's going on behind the scenes with Bigelow and all the money and the media and everything, the biggest thing about this whole event, whether it be true what they're showing us or not, is the admittance of it. Wouldn't you agree that they're admitting to something?
Exactly. We were in a traffic jam. The pressure was building up. We all know it's real, but we're not getting a single word. And it was movement. And it's a pathway towards disclosure. And if it's excruciatingly slow, well, I'll take it as long as it's going in the right direction.
Now, how did you yourself get involved in UFO research? Did you have an experience of your own, or was it like your bio says it was you didn't have any but your family and friends were?
Yeah, it was pretty much like that. I was not attracted to this subject. I was kind of pulled into it, kicking and screaming. Did not want to look into it because I had a lot of prior misconceptions about it, honestly. Really, I just thought, I'd heard of UFOs.
What do you mean misconceptions? Like you thought they were just government craft? Because some of these are, I would say.
I thought that, probably that's what people were seeing. either that or they were lying or they were misperceiving. I knew that the stars were too far away for aliens to fly from one star to another. I'm like, there's just no way. I don't know, I wasn't really willing to look at the evidence. I think that was the real problem. I thought aliens looked too much like us, and that bothered me. In a way, it still does.
So the book that just came out is called UFOs Over Colorado. Seems like every time you come out with a title, man, it blows me away. It's something that I haven't even thought about. Why Colorado? Why not California or Arizona? Arizona's big. What's the deal with the Colorado?
Well, I've done California, and I did Arizona, and I've done a number of other states, New Mexico, New York, Nevada. And Colorado, I think, like these other states, I'm picking states that have made what I think are significant contributions to our understanding of UFOs. I found each state really does have something to contribute. That, a major case that broke into the international headlines, usually, and really affected us and brought us further on our understanding of what's going on. And Colorado's, it's high on the list. It's got some major stuff going on there.
And so I'm going to take a little bit of a left turn here because I told you before the show I was going to throw some astral travel questions in there because that's my favorite subject in the world. And Elizabeth Anglin wants to know in the Spreaker chat room, have you, Preston, ever astral traveled onto an ET aircraft or one that you can remember?
Well, once perhaps. It was very vague. I just couldn't remember it, so I can't really count it. There was one time, I probably my best experience in that regard was, what happens is you'll pop out of your body, or you find yourself out of body, and often I'll try to fly to the higher dimensions, like what I would call the heavenly dimensions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And between there, here and there, is a kind of a smoky area or dark area, and usually you can pop through it pretty quickly, sometimes not. And I'm flying through it, trying to break through the barrier, I guess. And it's very cloudy, flying along at a pretty brisk pace, and I see a little dark spot up ahead, and I'm like, what's that? That's weird. And I fly right up alongside it and get a real shock. It looks like a typical gray ET, their head at least. And they're looking at me. You get a real jolt when you go right up next to one of these things, and it's looking right at you. I'm like, what? It felt like 3-5 feet away at most, and I just whizzed by it and went on my merry way.
You just whizzed by gray, huh?
Yeah, I was really shocked to see it. To be honest, and that was, I don't know, very interesting to me.
Are you? She also wants to know: do you have remote viewing abilities as well yourself?
I dabbled in it. I scored really well. I was experimenting with this guy on over Facebook, I guess, and scored really well. Yeah, I saw an orange, and the target was a lemon, I believe. So I scored real close and did really well on others. But it's not something I, do professionally or anything like that by any means. But yeah, I've had a number of psychic stuff. The astral travel, I think that was a real surprise. It wakes you up psychically. Often I'd come back from these astral travel trips, and there would be a memory of an event that would happen that day. Not super often, but often enough. Kind of a precognitive dream.
Can I ask you for some advice here, Preston? I've I talk about Robert Monroe's books. I read them every year, and I use William Buellman's material, who I've spoke to on Lighting the Void. I use his material to actually project out of my body. But here's the thing. I can't get out of my yard. Why can I not leave my yard? Do you think it's something psychological? Do you think there's possibly something blocking me? Or, C, all of the above?
It would be hard for me to say for sure without talking to you more, but that's not a super uncommon thing. It's funny, I'll pop out, and if you're very close to your body, you can get sucked right back in by your cord. If you're too close to your body, it can kind of hold you there.
Yeah.
I experimented with that. I got really close. I'd pull myself back. I get really close. I'd pull myself back. It was very interesting. Very powerful force. I think it could be partly fear. I'm guessing, that you are going on beyond there, but you're just not remembering it, because that's usually the sort of thing that happens.
Well, I remember the last one I did was last weekend. I laid, William talks about don't lay down in your bed, go to a different area because you're prone to, just falling straight to sleep in your bed. So I get on the couch, I put the headphones on, I'm staying awake as my body's falling asleep, and he's got a really, really good way of doing that. He does it perfect as he's talking to you. And his whole thing is, as soon as you get out, is to get away from your body as fast as possible. Don't get close to it, get away from it. Everybody wants to look at yourself sleeping and all that. So I did. I popped out. I could feel myself kind of like float up with my chest sticking out, almost like something was pulling me by my chest maybe. I go out in the yard, and I always want to fly up into a tree. This sounds so nuts. I'm sorry, but I'm telling you what happened. I get into the tree. I'm chilling in the tree again. This is the second time, except it wasn't cloudy and rainy outside. The sun was out in this realm for some reason. And I look back and I see my neighbor. She's playing with her little girl, and I should have asked her at the mailbox the other day, "Hey, were you playing?" But I don't want to wig them out, But anyways, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get out of here. So I'm thinking, I'm going to go to my cousin's barber shop. And the first thought that I had was, I haven't been able to do that since I've tried to get out of here. And I think maybe just thinking about it, that little bit of much might be blocking me. What do you think?
Absolutely, because thought rules. What you think will happen. And the way you want to get beyond this barrier is just make an intention. Say, you will go to whatever destination you want to. Or meet another person. That often works better because you can kind of call them and they'll pull you along. If you have a love connection with the deceased person on the other side, appeal to them and say, your intention next time you go out of body is to meet them. Go to where they are. And that will sweep you right off across to the other side in a snap of a second.
Wow.
Or just a place. Like I am going, this is something that happened to me a couple of years ago. I had did UFOs over in Nevada. I was doing research for that book and found out that there was this experiment that Fate magazine had done where they sent people to remote view and go out of body and get psychic impressions of Area 51. I thought, okay, that's something I could probably try. And so I did. And I had actually some really interesting experiences. The best one was, the best one, I'm going to say, I had some really interesting kind of half dreams where I went inside there in a more extensive way. But one really amazing experience for me was, popping out of body, being fully aware. Sometimes you're not, you're a little disoriented. But no, I was sharp. I was there. I popped through the roof. I'm like, what did I want to do? I wanted to do something. I'm thinking about it. And I'm floating there 50 feet, up, looking around. It's early morning. I'm like, Area 51. That's what I wanted to do. And as soon as I thought it, I'm like, now I go to Area 51. I said it in a very direct, willpower kind of way. You really kind of put your force into it. And a force grabbed my astral body and took me off in this whirling pattern, slowly at first, and then I kind of just, boom, teleported, I guess, would be the best way to put it. Because sometimes you travel at a slow 5 miles an hour and you're just, donking along there just bit by bit. And other times you
I think flying's the coolest thing, Preston. You got to admit that, right? Flying, like when you're out, you're like, hey, I remember how to do this, how to fly. I can just do it. But the weird thing is, I was helping my dad the other day, do some sheetrock work on a ceiling, and I got to thinking about why is it so easy for me to fly in the astral realm, and I know I can't do it here, but I'm going to do, and it's very hard to explain. But it's called, I like stretch out to fly, right? And I know what you're thinking. Stretch out with what, right? But I tried to do it in this realm just to see what it would feel like, and you could feel the immense amount of, you could actually feel the gravity and everything else. It's really weird. I don't even know how to explain it. But when I get in the astral realm, it's like nothing. You know, flying is the funnest thing to do.
Right, and if you get really good at this astral stuff, it will translate into the physical plane, really. I wrote a book on human levitation, and all the experts agree that astral travel is the real connection on how people are able to do this. It's an absolutely valid phenomenon. People do levitate. It's relatively rare, but it's in all cultures. I'm definitely connected to astral travel and flying. And I have to agree with you, flying is the best. It's worth the price of admission. I mean, if you do anything, and that is the best part of it. Man, I love it.
You know, Dawn says she gets so confused about out-of-the-body experiences, astral travel, or bilocation. Is it all the same thing?
Bilocation would be someone who is pretty advanced at it, and they're able to be aware in two places at once. There's a number of people reportedly been able to do this. Robert Monroe talked about it, and there's been like saints in history and various other characters who've been identified in one location, administering to the poor people and seen in another at the same time. And these are people who can do astral travel to a point where they can manifest a physical body, apparently, in multiple locations. So yeah, it's pretty advanced stuff, but something we're apparently able to do.
Well,
I did have...
Oh, go ahead.
I did have one really cool experience once where I was out of body flying. You know, I can't really remember where. It was way off. It felt like far away. And at the same time, I kind of like woke up in bed, and I couldn't believe it. I opened one eye just to make sure I was like really awake. And I really was. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. It was a little disorienting, but I kind of got a tiny taste of what it's like.
That would scare me a little bit, actually.
That was weird.
I bet it was. Well, the reason why I'm talking about this is because to me that there's some kind of connection here. You know, they say that these UFOs are taking off so fast, they seem to disappear and stuff. I think, and some people are going to go, well, duh, Joe, but, you know, for us to say that we know all this stuff scientifically is kind of crazy, or I don't even want to say scientifically, but however, I feel like that it's all related. You know, we studied esoteric and spirituality, we study aliens and UFOs, people's close encounters, Sasquatch. It seems to me that these beings understand these, based on what I've read, they understand these realms, and it's almost like they can move in and out of them with ease, where we're just kind of like maybe accidentally doing it or just now discovering it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I absolutely do. They're definitely pushing this whole spirituality thing. I'm trying to wake people up. And here's the thing I've been thinking about, actually. You know, when you think of a UFO, you know, a flying saucer, say, captured at Area 51 or whatever, it's metal, it's got little seats in it, you know, little levers and knobs. You're thinking, well, this thing was made on another planet, right? By aliens who mined it from metal and so on. But I'm wondering if some of these UFOs are coming from the astral plane and built in a different way than we could possibly understand with our current scientific knowledge. By that I mean like manifesting through sheer willpower. I don't know. But it seems to me that there is a connection. I'm sure there is. A lot of people who go through a UFO experience come away with the ability of astral travel. They'll report being sucked out of their body. That's not at all unusual. But I mean, here's how related it is.
What about the UFOs that people have said that those reported cases of insiders that have went on military craft, put their hand on something, and they became the UFO, and they could steer it with their brain.
Exactly.
It's like them. It's a part of their body now. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and there's been some surveys in this that show that a number of people do feel like the UFOs, this is a question I asked, the UFO itself was alive in some way. So we're talking, what are we looking at? Artificial intelligence or what? Some of these UFOs, it's my understanding that we've captured or, pulled down and are holding, have no engines in them. Not that we can see. and perhaps, they are running ways using mind power or connected to the other side in some way. A lot of them do seem to be operated with kind of this biofeedback type devices. But I don't know. It's really hard to say. I've talked to a number of people, this kind of ties to this, so they've been taken to the engine room and taught how to fly these craft.
Oh, that would be so freaking cool, wouldn't it?
Can you imagine?
I mean, it sounds like something that you would read in a, let's just say it sounds like something you would read in a Whitley Strieber fiction novel, right? But Joe Monk asked me a good question when I had him on, and he said, do you think that, and I should have asked it, and I didn't get to, and I owe Joe Monk a beer, by the way, for this, but he said, do you think that Whitley hid truth in his science, in his fiction novels? And I'm thinking, absolutely. The more I'm reading this stuff, Tom DeLonge admits it, and he did it when Secret Machines, that people are putting truth in these science fiction and fiction novels. And it's like, that's why this little disclosure thing came out. I'm not saying, I don't want to give credit to people that don't deserve it. There's some, not everybody, but there's some people giving this credit to Tom DeLonge and stuff. But Preston, I really think that the reason why this happened was people like these guys here in the chat room, how many books you've read, all the other hosts, including the hosts that are saying, Tom, everybody, it's like we're the UFO mob, and we've finally applied enough pressure, and something's coming down the line where they actually have to start releasing this information in the way that they can control it. Or I sound like I'm babbling here, but do you get what I'm saying?
No, I absolutely do. And I totally agree. If they don't start disclosing on a more active level, they're going to lose control of this subject, because there's a lot of people involved now. There's been a grassroots movement, I think, on the part of the ETs. They've contacted a whole lot of people. I can't tell you, I get contacted regularly. I've interviewed probably a dozen people in the past couple of months. Maybe not quite that many, about 8 people over the past 2 months. And got more people lined up to talk to or who are having this experience. It's not nearly as uncommon, I think, as a lot of people think.
Speaking of which, I want to get back to your book about Colorado. Can you give me, let's just say, a few of the best UFO cases that are in the Colorado that you researched?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Colorado, as far as best cases, the ones I would say that were most influential. Maybe not my favorite, right? But I'm going to say that probably the Salida footage by Tim Edwards. This was on August 27th, 1995, and this is right in the middle of a kind of a UFO hotspot area. And Tim Edwards' daughter is pointing to the sky. It says, "Look, Daddy, what's that?" He finally looks up and sees this giant cylinder, and he happens to have a video camera with him and starts filming this thing. His whole family is there. They've got binoculars. They're looking at it, and it has windows and things flying around it, or portholes, lights on it perhaps. And he got 10 minutes of footage or so, which was later analyzed by numerous experts and shown to be a very large object, very high in the sky. Was seen by a number of other people. There was a big wave of sightings at that time. And I feel, this case exploded into the media, almost as if it was one of these weirdly staged events on the part of the ETs, and he felt that. He certainly said that in his interviews, sort of putting on this publicity campaign, saying, we're here, this is us, UFOs are real, and here's the evidence. And it remains some of the best footage we've got, really, that's been, not debunked in any way.
There's still a lot of fake videos out there, though, that I really think, I used to think that people were doing it just for clicks, and some, other people would say, well, these are like CIA agents and people in intelligence putting out fake YouTube videos to counteract this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, right. Okay, man, you're getting a little out there with your conspiracy stuff. But now that all this information's come out, that's actually true. There's disinfo clowns all over the place. Spooks.
Yeah, there There really is. And the problem is there's some great UFO footage out there that's being buried. And it's really unfortunate that it all has to be vetted in such a horrendous way that people can believe it. Like another case, probably one of Colorado's most famous abduction cases, it's got to hands down be Stan Romanek. This case, to me, looks designed to sort of provide evidence of alien contact. In that, he's got still photographs, he's got footage. He had a healing incident. He's got numerous witnesses to his sightings when he's there.
That whole thing with him throwing the pencil, though, that was. He hurt himself with that one, Preston. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, and I've seen this myself a little bit. Do you know what I'm talking about? What I'm referring to, by the way?
Not sure that I do know.
Well, there's a video of Romanek on YouTube where he's on an interview, and I'm sure you guys know this, but I'm Preston. I'm just letting him know here that he threw like a marker or a Sharpie or something and tried to pretend it was like paranormal activity, like shocked, or like, oh, what was that or whatever. But the camera was panned down enough that you could see it was his hand that threw it. In other words, he thought the camera could only see him from the shoulder up, right? But in all actuality, you could see his hand throw the pen. And it just kind of was one of those things where he was caught trying to fake some kind of event, right? And a lot of people, once they saw that, they were like, well, I can't believe nothing Stan Romanek says from here on out because of that. But, I've met some people myself that I know have had real encounters. I'm not going to say any names, but they kind of don't want the publicity to stop. And so they do whatever they got to do to keep it going so they can keep getting the attention, keep getting the media, maybe write a book. You see where I'm going with that? So Stan Romanek's thing, I'm not saying I don't believe him, but it is pretty highly controversial right now. It has been for some time.
That's unfortunate. I'll have to look at the video.
Oh, yeah. You watch that video, it'll break your heart. Because it did mine.
Yeah. That's.
But it doesn't mean now that I'm not saying that the stuff that he reported was false. You understand what I'm saying by that? I just think that maybe he just didn't want the media attention to die down or something. That's all I'm saying. I don't know anything. I think that the stuff that happened on his computer, I mean, that's just a little bit fishy to me. But I don't want to go down the Romanek road with you here because we can get a fight started in the chat rooms about that. I've already seen that happen.
Well, if true, it's really unfortunate. Nobody's perfect, but it's definitely an influential case either way. That definitely would hurt your reputation.
Yeah.
Very stupid thing to do.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, oh no, man, come on, right? So. Well, let's go back to the Colorado cases, right? Were there any reported radar returns?
Yeah, there were some really interesting radar cases. And, Colorado has a large military presence. And there was one case which I thought was probably one of the more interesting cases. There was a number of radar cases, actually, where they able to see these things visually and paint them on radar. But one that I thought was really interesting, which really concerned the military, occurred on it was like May 1967, May 13th, and this was over Colorado Springs, a major radar station. They had multiple stations there, 3 actually. One mysteriously malfunctioned on that day, and 2 others were fine, and they detected this object coming right over the Colorado Springs base there at about 200 feet elevation, real close. They could tell it was like 50 feet wide. It was a solid object. They could tell exactly the size of it, and it looked like it was coming in for a landing like a normal aircraft does, but then it just kept on going. And 2 stations detected this thing, yet they could not see a darn thing at all. And that, really concerned them a lot and made them realize these things can turn invisible if they want.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
How come I'm going to ask a selfish question here. Do you get any cases from the South or Southeast around my area, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana? You ever talk to anybody? I just don't see it out here that much.
Oh, yeah, sure. There was one guy I talked to, circling back to USOs, underwater submersible objects. He told me this really interesting story about he and 3 friends who were at Lake Hamilton, Arkansas, and they were going boating. They were just teenagers at the time. This is just outside like Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Oh, yeah. I used to manage a bar out there. I know exactly where you're talking about.
So, yeah, there's this Lake Hamilton, not a huge lake, but, it's sizable.
Yeah.
And he went out there on his friend's motorboat. 2 boys, 2 girls going out to, have a little romantic evening out there.
Sounds like
on
Hot Springs.
And so they were out there parked in one of the little bays there that was more secluded. And suddenly, coming up from beneath them, well, he thought at first it was some sort of underwater dock or something, but they were pretty far out there. It shouldn't be. It was round, perfectly round. It was like black or gray metal, and it hit the boat. And they're like looking at it, and it really scared them. They're like, well, maybe we should get out of here. And so they tried to get out of there. They turned on the boat, and the boat would not move. And at this point, the girls were getting really scared. They started screaming, get us out of here. He gunned the boat as far as he could. Still nothing. And that's when they had missing time. They all kind of lost consciousness for a second. And next thing they know, they're not in that little bay there anymore. The object is gone. They're on the other side of the lake. They're at full speed, and they're heading right towards this pole, and swerved just in time, rushed home, and both their sets of parents were there, and very angry, wanting to know where they had been for the last 2 hours. So they were very late. They had, not just a little bit of missing time, a good pronounced period there. And that was basically it. They didn't talk about it for a long time after that.
How do you find out about these reports? I'm not trying to get on your thunder, or, steal how you get all this stuff. I mean, you got a ton of books out, man. They're all great material. What do you do? I mean, do people call you directly? Do you look in the MUFON cases and call them up, or how do you go about doing this?
There's been dry spells and rainy spells. It's really strange. I have a number of people at work I've gotten stories from. One of the people in my book, Inside UFOs, is a lady I worked with for years. People contact me on the internet. That's not at all unusual. I used to get tons of fan mail mailed to me. That's definitely slowed down. I get a number of people who come up to me when I speak at various conferences. That's definitely another avenue people have to contact me. Through my website, I get people. So it comes in a number of different ways. And I have to tell you, it's sometimes really coincidental and a little strange because I'm not really well known, I don't think. Certainly
You're not well known. I don't believe that at all. Everybody knows you in the UFO field, Preston.
Well, maybe in the UFO field, but walking down the street, I'm not like famous. And yet people will come up to me and they'll start talking about UFOs. And I don't think that they realize that, I've written a number of books on this subject. I'd love to hear what you're talking about and why are you talking about this? And that's happened a number of times. So I'm like, I looked down at my shirt. Am I wearing one of my alien shirts? I have a couple. But no. But yeah, a bunch of different ways. I think now it's really built up to a point where I've, written all these books. And so a lot of people are contacting me. Certainly after this last one. Oh my God. After Inside UFOs, I've got a lot of people calling me saying, oh, this happened to me. One lady also saw a 15-foot tall praying mantis. All the people were telling me how they were healed by ETs or various encounters.
A praying mantis. Yeah, how do you not freak out if you see a praying mantis?
Yeah.
I've seen regular praying mantises on just our praying mantises kill things 3 times the size of them. So if I saw an alien that looked like a praying mantis, I wouldn't think anything. I mean, are they friendly? Surely not, right? I mean, these got to be malevolent beings. A praying mantis? Do they look just like a praying mantis?
That's how people generally describe them. They might say insectoid or I've heard grasshopper. And I've talked to some people who were great observers. I already told you that story about the Navy medic.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
one lady, she contacted me. She's a special education teacher. Really neat lady, very articulate. And she would go jogging each morning, early in the morning, outside her home in O'Fallon, Illinois, and was jogging along with her dog and comes upon, a T intersection, and she sees what she first thinks is a man on stilts walking, about 100 feet away, maybe a little less, in front of her, down the street, down the middle of the road. And as it walks under the streetlight, she's like, nope, that's not a man on stilts. That's a giant praying mantis.
Is this in broad daylight?
Thing. No, this was like at 4:30 in the morning.
Okay.
5 o'clock. It was still dark.
Yikes.
But she could see it. She wasn't that far from it. She could see it had gray skin. She could see its giant eyes. It was looking down at the road. Its head was going back and forth as if looking for something.
Yeah, food.
And, didn't apparently see her, but perhaps.
I'm sorry, but
did not.
I've got people who've gotten mad at me because they're like, well, you don't know, Joe. You can't say all aliens are, malevolent and evil and all this stuff. That's just not true. Look, if I've seen a praying mantis in real life and its head is moving like a chicken looking for something, that looks and feels, it just feels dangerous to me hearing you describe the encounter. I mean, I'm not wrong here, right? To assume. I mean, what do you know about these things? Actually, Shar wants to know in the chat room, too. What are the characteristics of the mantis alien?
Each case is unique. Some people you talk to say, well, the one I was with was not emotional, not responsive to me, gave me a painful examination. That's probably the worst I've heard. Other times I hear that they're very communicative,
Mm-hmm.
Very intelligent. That's something I've heard many times. I don't get a whole lot of what I would call hostile, sadistic type encounters from people. That's not what they're telling me.
Well,
worst
the ones
I get
that
is
are missing don't tell stories either. You know that, right? I'm just playing.
No, that's true. There are a number of people missing all the time. I know that.
That's right.
I'm not sure how many are connected to UFOs, but who knows? There might very well be. But the people I've talked to haven't felt this is a horrendous experience.
Okay.
And I don't think that there's any evidence that they are hostile or out to hurt you or take over our planet or anything like that. In fact, if you look at what they're telling people, the people who actually speak to these guys, the evidence, I think, shows what their agenda is.
Fair enough.
It's uplifting humanity in some way, a number of specific areas.
Gotcha. So the lady saw one walking her dog. She realized it was a praying mantis. Did anything happen after that? Did she just run the other way?
No, she stopped. Her dog stopped. I looked at it and let it walk past, and then she followed it. She and her dog ran after it and followed it down the street.
They followed it?
Yeah, I'm like, that's exactly what I said. I'm like, are you crazy? And she's like, well, it didn't see me, And I'm like, okay. And she'd seen deer, she'd seen little fox and things like this crossing the road before while out jogging early in the morning. It's a pretty rural area. And this thing just kind of went down the street, maybe a couple of 100 yards more, turned off like through a cornfield there, and disappeared. Now, here's what's interesting, though. She lives right next to Scott Air Force Base, which, is, very close, which hasn't been implicated directly with UFOs, but a lot of the air bases have. And this is an area that has had some activity, not far from like the Tinley Park and that whole flyover that became very famous. And also kind of coincidentally, this incident occurred at the same time as very close to the same time as the O'Hare Airport UFO incident, where it created a punch cloud. I don't know if you remember that.
I can see you in your place. You probably got a map with pins and strings all over it, trying to find something, don't you? Do you have one of those on a sticky board? Where it's got all the strings attached to it, and you're looking for the same location like a detective? You do a lot of work, man.
No,
I don't think
do
people
that.
realize how much work you do on this.
My sticky board is now electronic. I'm using little electronic, digital markers.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I did that for actually today for the undersea UFO activity off the California coast here. I just charted all the undersea encounters to see what kind of pattern there was, and it matches pretty much exactly the over the sea, the ones that are people haven't seen going in or out of the water, that are in the same area.
Really?
But a lot of cases in this area, well over 50 of each kind, closer to 100 actually. Not quite, very close.
Is there a particular area of the ocean where this usually happens? Is it closer to land, or does this happen way out in the middle of nowhere?
Closer to land, and I can't say that means it only happens closer to land. But
yeah, because that's where we're seeing them.
Right, but yeah, it's very thick right there in the Santa Catalina, San Pedro Channel area, and not so much in Northern California or other areas. Really, I think that's got to be one of the top 10, top 5 even, USO areas in terms of the number of reports, at least.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take our first break here. We're already an hour into the show. We're here with Preston Dennett from PrestonDennett.weebly.com. Interesting stuff. We're going to get back into this discussion when we come back. Don't go anywhere, guys.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spaceoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from Your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Looking for nighttime adventure? Old school radio that delves into everything out of the norm? Then check us out at Spaced Out Radio. This is Dave Scott. Every Monday through Friday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, we're going to take you on a wild ride ranging from conspiracies to true crime and every ghost, alien, and Sasquatch story in between. We're always live and we're always interactive with you. So join us at spacedoutradio.com, where together we own the night.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. This is Spaced Out Saturdays with host Joe Roop. You can follow Joe on Twitter at Lighting the Void. And if you want to call into tonight's show, dial 501-777-5631. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, from the deep south of Arkansas, here is Spaced Out Saturday host Joe Roop.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Tomorrow night on the program, Elizabeth Anglin on Cosmic Passport. And then we start the week off again with Dave Scott and Spaced Out Radio. Don't forget, Spaced Out Radio is here for you 7 nights a week. Also, you can go to gofundme.com/We Own the Night. Since we've got some more terrestrial stations going to pick up Spaced Out Radio, we need to upgrade the studio. So if you can help us out, go to gofundme.com/We Own the Night. By the way, I do want to tell you guys that the weekend that we had Dark Waters on was a phenomenal weekend. I think it was the highest played Spaced Out Radio show since the Nick Redfern show. And he sent me a message tonight and said he is working on all your free memberships. So thank you for calling in on that. And you should have your memberships by tomorrow. They should all be there. All right, so where we left off of Preston Dennett, we were talking about the praying mantis and stuff, but I kind of want to get back on your studies here in your new book, UFOs over Colorado. Now, you talk about the Condon Committee UFO study. What is that exactly?
It's actually a fiasco, one of the biggest disasters in the whole history of the UFO movement. It occurred, this was a study that the University of Colorado did that was basically designed to get the Air Force out of Project Blue Book and studying this phenomena in an official capacity. And what the Condon Committee did was take all the files in Blue Book, some of them, and put them through a so-called, I'll put this in quotes, scientific study. The guy who headed the Condon Committee, Robert Lowe, was a UFO skeptic and was supposed to be impartial, but this memo got leaked, which proved that he wasn't, and that the whole thing was really a farce. And mind you, they were spending what amounted to millions of dollars, adjusting for today's inflation. A lot of money. And it was just a complete whitewash. And the study came out, and it said basically, there's nothing to UFOs. They're no threat to national security. Teachers should not be teaching them in schools. And it took a very negative stance, even though a number of the cases they still could not explain. But the damage was done. A lot of people thought in this study that UFOs were not real. And the Air Force did discontinue Blue Book 1 year later. And pretty much the government shut up after that. They were not helping citizens who were on their own dealing with this phenomena.
Yeah, well, isn't it funny how every person that you talk to in the United States will tell you not to trust the government? Do not trust the government. But back then, when the government came out and said, there's no UFOs or whatever, they're in Blue Book and all that debunking that happened, see, they were like, see, I told you. It was all a bunch of hogwash. Isn't that funny? Your people they'll do anything to validate their beliefs, even say that the government's right when it validates their debunking beliefs. And now they're saying, oh, well, that was kind of real. But we're not studying it anymore. We're not doing anything anymore. But it was real at one time.
Yeah.
Come on.
They viciously debunked people. People would see this stuff and they'd say, nope, you saw birds. We're talking, great witnesses in some cases, made to look like absolute fools over and over again. They were they were viciously debunking a phenomenon that they clearly knew was real, which is a very poor decision, I think.
Yeah, well, if anybody trusts what anybody says from the government, you're crazy. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't care who Donald Trump, I don't care who it's coming from. If you trust whatever they're saying is true, then you deserve to be fooled a little bit. But maybe one day we'll get back to some real transparency. Do you think that day will ever come?
I do. I think the truth has a way of taking care of itself. I'm sure there are secrets that remain, but secrets have a way of being divulged eventually. And that's certainly a pattern we're seeing. I think this is what's led to so much distrust. But there's this open level of transparency that I can't see it going the other way. I mean, I guess it certainly could. But speaking of like ETs, I've had a number of people tell me, they're very telepathic. There's complete transparency. They know everything you're thinking. And in some cases, you know everything they're thinking. I think that's
kind of scary.
That's something we're going to be trending towards, perhaps, is becoming more aware of each other's thoughts and feelings, and won't have to deal with all these lies and greed. I'm hopeful that we are progressing as a species, but we'll see.
In your studies, Preston, the title of this episode is Aliens Among Us. I've been recently told, like when I started doing Spaced Out Saturdays, I told the audience, I told you that I was going to go down this road heavier than I've ever went before. And now that I'm going down this road, I'm starting to understand that they're already here, that they walk amongst us every day. Do you think that's true as well?
I do. And I think that it's hard for people to notice them sometimes because they let people see them who they want to see them. It's very strange. I mean, like John Hunter Gray, he had a very interesting abduction out of outside Wisconsin, Richland Center, Wisconsin, I believe it was, with his son. And it was just your typical abduction by gray-type ETs, really. But immediately prior to it, they had a very strange experience where they encountered this very short individual at a gas station wearing a fisherman's cap and sunglasses and pretty much completely covered with clothes, staring at them, and ended up following them very closely. They'd speed up, he'd speed up. They'd slow down, he'd slow down, and disappeared right immediately prior to their abduction. And they somehow felt that he was connected and may have been one of them. And it wouldn't surprise me because there's a number of cases like this. Another case in New York to this lady, Shane Kurz. This was a case from Hans Holzer in his book, The UFOnauts. And it's a pretty well-known case. She had this individual approach her on the playground. It was very unusual looking, kind of exotic with kind of exotic-looking eyes and strange-looking clothes, which you couldn't quite pinpoint why they were strange, but it was not the current style.
Male or female?
Male.
Okay.
And he had like really white hair and started asking her all these bizarre questions like, what, do you want to come see my vehicle over there in the field? She said, no. He's like, she says, I have to go play basketball or volleyball. And he's like, well, what's volleyball? And he didn't know basic subjects. And finally she just got creeped out and went away, and her friends were like, who's that? She says, I don't know. I don't know who that was. But she saw him again at a convenience store and saw him a third time when she was taken on board a UFO, and there he was. So I think, they're walking among us. There's a number of cases where people have seen, like this. I've written extensively on this. There was one lady who saw an alien aboard a subway. She couldn't believe it. It was a gray-type ET. No one seemed to be noticing it but her. Another person at a train station. Another person at a restaurant. A number of casino stories.
So someone saw a gray, like a flat-out gray, big black eyes and all that, but no one else saw it but her?
Right.
Well, see, that makes me think that they're going in and out of phase again. You know what I mean? Like they got to be doing that.
They can do this. There's a lot of cases where people, I've just got a new one. In fact, there was a group of 5 people who did, 2 of them weren't seeing the UFO. 3 of them could not see it. 2 were seeing it, and the others weren't. So, how do you explain that? And a number of cases just like that. People get really upset. They're looking at this object, and the person right next to them can't see it. They can control who they want to see them. This happened to the Navy medic. He was the only one who was looking at this UFO before he was pulled on board. And he was trying to point it out to other people. They would not pay attention.
Well, they obviously use, like Yeg is saying, some kind of mind trick or something. I talked to Mike Clellan about how people see the symbol or an actual owls and stuff like that. Whitley Strieber, in his communion story, remembered seeing an owl. It does seem like they have some kind of trickery of the mind, but then yet wouldn't we see someone pulling out and I could be wrong about this, but wouldn't we see, if that were true, someone pulling out let's say a film with their phone saying, look at that, you see that? And you don't see nothing, maybe they have, and everyone's like, I can't see nothing, and they just haven't posted it. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I'm really curious to see what a filmed screen memory event would look like. Because they're playing mind tricks. I think in some cases they're actually dressing up. In other cases it's purely hypnotic type thing. It's really interesting. There's one case, this is kind of a tangent, but related. This was, I think in Alabama. And a group of teenagers were running along when this UFO is chasing them with this beam of light. And one of the girls gets hit by the beam of light. And she says, as soon as it hits her, she's like, you know what? I felt better than I've ever felt in my life. All my problems went away. Didn't want to run anymore. And I was just entranced by how great I felt. And I've heard the same sort of thing a number of times. So they can just basically turn on a little light and hypnotize you to a point where you're, are not going to remember it, for one thing. And pretty much control you in a lot of ways.
Johnny Connor asks a pretty interesting question. He says, do you ever get telepathic communications from certain races? And if so, certain ET races, I think he meant to put ET there, but if so, would you share any information with us concerning any important messages they have for mankind? Also, have they told you what, if anything, we can all do to help free humanity from the tyrants that are keeping us down here on this planet?
I think telepathy is definitely how ETs communicate, and most people who have had contact in any way report this sort of thing. Often they'll hear messages like, don't be afraid, we won't hurt you. So I think that points towards their benevolence. I personally have had a little bit of it, actually, yeah. There was one time I just interviewed this lady, I'll call her Wendy, who told me how she had been abducted, and she lashed out once and tried to hurt one of these things and actually kicked it in the neck, and it fell over. She was very concerned she had actually killed it. They dragged it away, and it ended the experience. But she's had all these visitations by Greys, and I'm documenting all this. I'm like, gosh, I wonder if this is true. I really wonder if this is true. When I got a sudden impulse that was really strong to run up to the roof of where I lived then was a condo. So this is something I've really never done. And I did. I ran up there. And as soon as I got out, honest to God, I wasn't there more than, 10 seconds when this light appears. And I'm going to say it's 100 feet away, maybe 100 feet up. Not far. It was right across the river wash there. Bright orange, a circle, and it starts darting back and forth. And honest to God, I get this like little thought from it, or a blast of thought saying, hi, it's us. We're Wendy's ETs. We're real. And, look, here we are darting around. It's like, hi, it's us. Look. I'm like, wow. And I watched this thing dart around. Honest to God, maybe just for 5 seconds at the most before it disappeared. But, it was enough to convince me.
Oh, absolutely.
I have to tell you.
I'm just waiting on my time. When's going to be my time, Preston? What do I got to do? Do I got to study this more, contact more people? Because there's a lot of people that don't have any experiences ever. And, I don't know that if they care to or don't want to, but people say, hey, it's just a matter of time, Joe, because you're really getting into this. They're going to show themselves to you. Well, I must have done something in my life, or I'm not ready for something, because they're not showing themselves to me at all. I've only seen one type of event happen, and it happened with a star, and that was quite a long time ago.
I think that speaks to the second part of the question that you got, which is what can we do, to improve humanity, and that's try and contact these guys, meditate. That's one method of making contact. Associating with a person who's having extensive contact, that's definitely going to increase your chances. There are definite hot spots in every state that I've investigated so far, and I'm sure there are in other states. Each state has their kind of hot spot. That would be a place to visit. So there are various little methods you can use to increase your chance of contact. But ultimately, I think it's about telepathy, sending the thought out there, giving some time to the subject, and trying to make contact. And the ETs do have a message. They've been saying pretty much the same things since the contactee era of the 1950s. It doesn't matter what type of ET you're talking to. These friendly Nordics who said they were from Venus in the 1950s, in Mars, or the Greys, or even the praying mantis type, all are saying basically the same types of messages. And what they want people to study is basically the environment. They're very worried about the environment. This is a message that comes across over and over again. Whitley Strieber had an experience with this. All the really well-known contact experiencers have talked about this, being given messages of disasters. It's a huge deal. And nuclear proliferation. Another is alternative energy. They want people to move off fossil fuels and use solar energy, wind energy, water energy, electromagnetic energy.
Well, that's just logical. We should be doing that, anyways. But, capitalism has its way of keeping everybody doing what they want us to do,
Yeah, it's hard to get off the grid, but I think this is sort of something that, that they're talking about. And alternative healing, that's another big thing. Out-of-body experiences, learning about past lives, channeling, psychic readings, even water dowsing and hands-on healing. These are all types of things that keep turning up. People that I've interviewed, they'll have their experiences and they start getting very interested in these types of subjects and get good at it and influential. Healers especially. Hands-on healers, I hear that so many times. I can't even tell you.
We can get into that. But I want to ask this question before I forget about it, Preston. You said beings from Venus. Now, I believe you mentioned something about that earlier, but I'm going to ask you your opinion on this because I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on that. But, there's a lot of people that say that there's beings on every planet in our solar system where they're just not visible, all kinds of different excuses, but we're not seeing them with our cameras, so to say. NASA's not seeing them, but you can't really trust that. I mean, Richard Hoagland said there was water on Mars years ago on Art Bell, and they laughed at him forever, and now they're finding water on Mars. But do you think that all our planets are inhabited by beings in the solar system based on your research? In our solar system?
Right. I can't say that I do. I've heard a number of scattered reports, not enough to really convince me. But the idea of, different vibrations and different dimensions is something I definitely resonate with. And I can't see why there wouldn't be, astral beings. I don't know, on Venus. But as far as life as we know it, I'm not so sure. There could very well be like bases here and there. That wouldn't surprise me a bit. But if there's stepped up vibrational civilizations, I've heard that not enough times for me to be fully convinced of it. But I have heard of it, yeah.
That's a good answer. That's how I would have answered it. But, I'm waiting for that one person to go, oh, yeah, absolutely. There's physical beings on every planet. Then, then I'm going to rub my hands together and go, okay, here we go. But I wanted to get into that with John Lear, but I didn't get a chance to. Now, you talk about in your new book, the UFO Watchtower. What is that?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. There's this lady by the name of Judy Messeline, and she lives in the middle of the San Luis Valley. Now, that turns out to be Colorado's biggest hotspot. A lot of UFO encounters there. They've been going on for pretty much 100 years. Very active area. And she'd seen UFOs a number of times, and the area became more and more popular to the point where she was having people camping out on her land. She's like, what are these people here for? It became clear that they were looking for UFOs. And she got tired of it, tired of them chasing them away, and this sort of thing. And finally decided, you know what, instead of fighting this, let's join them. And she appealed to the city, her local board there, and asked them if she could build this watchtower, a UFO watchtower about 15 feet high. It holds like 50 people, and she got approval. And she built this thing and started charging people, built a little gift shop and charged people $1 or $2 just to go up to the tower and try and call down UFOs. And you know what is so amazing about this story is it actually worked. People would go up there and they'd just be on the lookout for UFOs. And this was already an active area, and people started to see them. And what's really interesting, there were some very well-documented cases. There was a time there were like 40 people up there, and one guy has a super powerful flashlight, and he's flashing at it in patterns, and it's flashing right back at him. And everyone's oohing and ahhing. They're all watching it. Some people have gotten upset to the point, they've had to leave because they weren't expecting this thing to work. But yeah, they've logged a whole library of encounters now.
What do you mean they got upset? Like they were mad that it messed with their beliefs, or they got upset? What do you mean by that?
They got afraid. They're like, oh my God, we're calling UFOs. This is not quite what she had expected. Expected maybe to see one, maybe not interact. And made her nervous and had to leave. She's like, this is too much.
Where is this located again?
This is on the southern end of the San Luis Valley. Yeah, the UFO Watchtower. It's pretty famous, actually. But it's an interesting story because here's a lady who's like, you know what? Here's a way I can, deal with this situation in a positive way, and it became a success.
Oh, no.
They've logged a whole.
Right.
She's now become sort of a researcher and has talked to a number of people who have had encounters. They come to her gift shop and share their experiences, and some people come, and not everyone, of course, sees a UFO, but definitely a number of people have. They write it down in the little logbook, and it's a good idea, I think. A good way of dealing with this UFO situation, to have live fieldwork being done in a way that you can join.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Well, speaking of that, we know that, or I guess that Cheyenne Mountain monitors all air traffic in the U.S., right? So do the people at Cheyenne Mountain Complex, do they know about or report UFOs that you know of?
Well, I mean, we know that they would have to, because these people are responsible for monitoring, all the air traffic. And what's interesting is that, yes, there have been some leaks. There was a leak from a young worker. He was 19 years old, actually, when he started there. And was at the scopes when he saw one of these, what they call bogies, unidentifieds, and
bogies.
Didn't talk about it, but learned that it happened again, and that when it happened a third time, he started talking about it, and they says, "No, don't talk about this. We don't talk about it. We all know about it, but it's not something we really talk about." But they told him that yes, these things are there all the time, going up and down, and we don't know what they are. So absolutely, they know about him.
Is their reports public, though? Is there somewhere we can look at that? Or do they keep all that secret, like classified?
Oh, no, it's classified.
Yeah, of course it is.
They do not admit that UFOs are real yet at Cheyenne Mountain. We'll have to talk to the Pentagon, who says now that UFOs are real. So maybe we can get some communication there. They'll let us know.
ACOG is asking in the Spreaker chat, has he heard anything about Ariel spraying chemtrails, aluminum and other chemicals with fluoride in the water are mixing inside humans, causing a crust or film type that covers the pituitary gland, which is where the process of psychic communication is transmitted from us in humans. Can we still hear and not speak? I don't understand that. Can we still hear and not speak? Or does it affect both or neither? Or is this just a theory? So I guess he's asking about chemtrails and the chemicals that cover our pituitary gland that keeps us from having psychic communication, maybe with extraterrestrials. Have you studied about this at all, or what's your beliefs on that?
No, I can't say I've studied chemtrails. I've heard, I looked into it a little bit, and what I've heard is that, yeah, this is a real thing. And but there are questions about the motive. Is this being done to stop our planet from reaching too high a temperature and greenhouse gas effect and this sort of thing, getting out of control, global warming? Or is it to control the population in some way? That I don't know. I haven't really looked into it, so I couldn't really speak to it. But I do think that there's a very strong organic movement and on the part of the ETs. This is something we see people who have experiences come away from them as vegetarians and very interested in organic food and start growing their own food and getting impurities out of their body of various types.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
If you guys got any questions like that, too, you can call in at 501-777-5631. This is a call-in show. We do have the phones open. Of course, I know calling in isn't the favorite thing for people to do, but we're trying to bring old-school radio back here. So you guys call in if you got any questions, 501-777-5631. Now, Preston, out of all of your cases that you've studied, what do you think, what's your favorite case of all?
I've got a couple of favorites, actually. I mean, there's one case that intrigues me because it's just different from a lot that I hear. And it involves this gentleman who's a police officer, didn't make enough money at his job, and so worked during the night, moonlighted as a restaurant manager, a nightclub manager, and was just finished his route as a police officer and is driving to his nighttime job when he sees this UFO not far from him, hovering practically over him, a large, dark craft, can't identify it, and sees it for just a short time, and it moves off, and he goes on to work and thinks, okay, that's strange. Gets to work and immediately notices this strange man looking at him. Not strange in the way he looked pretty much like a normal guy, but the way he was looking at him, and it was kind of hostile or intent, very focused. And he's thinking, okay, I'm going to have a problem with this guy, and goes up to confront him. And they go outside, and this man starts to say, you saw a UFO just a few minutes ago, didn't you? And the police officer is like, well, yeah, I did. Who are you? And how do you know about that? And the man says, well, I've been watching you a long time. We've been watching you. You're one of the people we've chosen. And proceeded to describe all these incidents in the police officer's life, from where he was now to teenage years, all the way down to when he was a kid, to incidents that he could not even remember. And basically ended the meeting saying, we'll be watching you, and walked off. Very strange, right?
Yeah, of course, it is strange, but that goes back to my question, why is he so special? What is it about him?
Something, they'll say, oh, you're our chosen one, or we have chosen you. They say that in a way of, I think it's flattery. They choose a lot of people. I'm not sure what it is about a person. Usually it's, a lot of people who have had extensive contact, I've noticed it's a loose pattern, but certainly it runs in their family. That's one pattern. And another is they do good work for humanity in some way. They're social workers, they're police officers, they're inventors, doctors, teachers, environmentalists, human rights activists. I've got a long list, and something that turns up quite a bit.
They're just not part-time worker, radio host, Southern guys from Arkansas. None of those, right?
Entertainers and actors, and I think writers, I think fall under that.
All right, you're going to have to turn down your radio, because turn your radio down. This is 212 area code. Who are we speaking with?
This is Daryl from New York City.
Hey,
Daryl. Most reported city of UFOs.
According to the Bureau, that's true.
And that doesn't include any that I've reported, because I haven't reported any. I could have doubled that, I think. At least.
Yeah, I can still hear the radio back in the background. What do you have a question for Preston?
Well, I was going to ask him what his opinion was about, I don't know if I'm seeing orbs or holograms. There was I took a film of this sunset, but it was on the east side of Manhattan instead of the west side, and it didn't set actually. It just kind of got very dull. It faded away. It split in two, and then it just kind of burned out. And I went back to look to see if I could see it from a different point of view, in an archive situation, and it wasn't visible from every viewpoint. And tonight, the same thing happened. I saw with my own eyes, I saw some fireworks, and I heard them. And when I went to look in the archive, and I couldn't see them at all with the entire view of the city, which would have been visible. And I don't know. I'm just wondering if he's aware of any kind of superimposed holographic kind of forces that are tricking us, maybe, or setting us up for something bigger.
Preston?
I could share you the sunset that was setting on the east side that wasn't the sun, if you want to see what it looked like. It's like a minute long. But I just don't think some of the things that we're seeing are even there,
In other words, you're asking, if some of this are holograms, or if they're just tricks that they're showing us something that's not really there, maybe.
are they in the habit of using holograms, for effect, or, sometimes holograms can be very real. I don't even know if they can, you can do things with holograms.
What do you think about that,
Right.
Preston?
It's my understanding. People have talked about this for a while. Kind of a false flag, a false incident that the government would use to trick people. And it wouldn't surprise me if they have the capability to do this. I'm not sure that they're doing it actively because drawing attention to this phenomena is counterproductive for them at this point. But
so it probably is not ET doing it.
Right, but on the other hand, little experiments here and there to see how the populace would react, or if an incident would be reported. Definitely not out of the question. As far as I know, no one's been able to confirm like this sort of thing has actually happened. We've got a lot of UFO sightings, but no one's been able to point to one and say, "Yep, that was a laser hologram made by the government. I've got an inside source that says it. It wasn't real." That hasn't happened.
Let's not forget about the hologram theory of the 9/11 report. There's still a lot of people that are leaning on that pretty hard, and there's some video footage that's kind of weird, and I don't know if it's just a trick of video, or sometimes you get pixels that don't do the right thing on videos. But if you guys seen that video where the plane was hitting the tower and the wing just disappears and reappears, it did look a little weird.
They could have, who knows, there could have been an interface for added effect or added horror, who knows. It was horrific enough, as if it wasn't bad enough.
Now, I got another question.
I've been witnessing a lot of different holographic, superimposed holographics. I could only explain them as that because obviously, what I've witnessed or filmed didn't really happen because the city's still here. But the things I've seen would have caused damage. Let's put it that way, if they were real. So I'm pretty convinced there's something fishy going on. I've seen superimposed. Look, the other day they had Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse in the New York skyline. Okay, they were huge. And if they could put Minnie Mouse and Mickey Mouse up in the sky, they could put anything up there, I'm sure it was an advertisement for Disney,
If somebody has a report, though, Preston, like say Paris here, or Daryl, excuse me, can they just report on your website?
Yeah, you can contact me through my website. There's a place you can describe your experience as well. Absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't gotten a lot of reports like yours.
Yeah, I filmed tanks in Times Square that were you can even see that they weren't really touching the ground. They've had checkerboards, like yellow and black checkerboards superimposed on Times Square. They play with the city like it's a canvas. And I catch them, I catch them, I film them, and I put them in an archive and wonder what to do with them. But I know I just feel like I'm onto something, but I don't know what it is. And I just want to know if they're superimposing certain things, why and who's doing it, What's their, agenda, and are there just practice runs for something bigger, perhaps? And to be prepared for something bigger, maybe, because it looks real. Some of them look very real. But telling the difference, some of them just can't be real because, the sun doesn't set in the east yet, And it was 4:30 p.m. and there was a big bright sun in the east side of the city, But it just fizzled away. It took 20 minutes for it to make its complete activity, from a blaring sun to kind of a line around the sun, and then it kind of split in half, and then it just kind of faded, like it just burned out like a match.
I haven't heard anything quite like that, but it's definitely interesting.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I'll definitely share it with you. I'll share it to the site, and I'll put it in Discord. I think I did put it in Discord. But thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting question there. I mean, the hologram thing has always been, I'm going to be honest with you, Preston. The hologram thing has always been like, yeah, right, for me. But, I mean, we know hologram technology is real, though. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of expecting to see this to come forth, to rear its ugly head at some point.
And a lot of things, man. I have eaten crow on so many things in the past 5 years, and have been wrong about so many things. Dave used to tell me about chemtrails, and I used to just be like, "Come on, man, you got to be kidding me, really?" Until the CIA came out and kind of admitted that they were experimenting with it, and then I was eating crow on that. So there's certain things I don't mind eating crow about, like disclosure, the Tom DeLonge thing. I hope that video is real. I really do. But I'm a bit of a skeptic. I hate to be that way, but I'm just naturally that way about most things. But isn't it funny that I'm skeptical about these other things? But when I go to explain an astral travel experience I know I've had, I sound like a wacko. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally agree with you. That's kind of why I got involved in this field. When I first started doing UFO research, I wanted to see one. That's where I really concentrated on. And same thing when I did ghost hunting, had ghost experiences. Really wanted to get close to the each phenomena that I could investigate, whether it's Bigfoot or astral travel or what have you. Experiencing it yourself is really what convinces a person.
I lost a phone there at the end of that call. I'm trying to get it back up, and I got it. Okay, yeah, the phone's back. Yeah, it's back up. So if you want to call in, it's 501-777-5631. Now, you were talking about earlier healing cases, and I hear your voice kind of lighten up when you talk about that. Like, it makes you happy to hear about this. I've heard you talk about healing cases in the astral realm. But do you have any favorite cases of where, I don't know, a UFO case to where someone was healed because they were around a UFO?
Oh, yeah, I sure do. This is the subject of my first book. I wrote it back in 1996. There was about 103 cases that I collected, and I put in that book. And since I published it, I've spoken a lot about it. Gotten a lot of new cases, probably more than twice that. I'm going to say close to 250 cases now, and a lot recently. Wow. Oh my God! You name an illness or an injury, and I could probably dig up a case where a person reports a healing.
What about cancer?
And, oh yeah,
you're serious?
Probably absolutely, 20, 30 cases. Some pretty well verified ones. I just did an interview with a gentleman for the Freeze study by Ray Hernandez, and it involved a cancer healing. The book's not out. I can't really talk about that particular case, but there's a bunch of them. There's one lady I talked to. She's from, I believe it's Norway. Really neat lady. She's an environmentalist and human rights activist. Didn't want me to use her name, and I agreed, of course, not to. And she had this very interesting experience where she had injured her back pretty badly, and it was affecting her work in a way that was damaging her performance. And in the middle of the night, she has this visitation by gray-type ETs. She has no history of UFO visitations in her childhood. She had one distant UFO sighting. She had a bunch of people with her, but nothing really. And in come these grays, and she says they didn't say a word. They came, they started tossing her around, kind of like she was a rag doll. She couldn't move. She was actually pretty scared because they were not communicating. Described the typical grays that you've heard so much. And they put her on her stomach and started doing stuff to her back. And it was painful for a second, really painful. And then the pain stopped. It suddenly completely stopped. Which was amazing because she's been in very bad pain. And they just filed out. They went right through the wall and they were gone. And she looked outside and it was bright blue and looked very, very strange. And then the light went off and she got up and her back was completely cured. Just like that.
Wow. I wonder if they're into weight loss. That'd be cool. I'm just playing. Well, that's. I mean, it seems like every subject that's in is one of the reasons why I've got you on this show. You've touched it at some form or fashion. You have touched every topic of ufology and the study of close encounters. But I want to ask you this too, and I don't know if I've ever got to ask you this about the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch. Do you think, and this is an answered question for many of us in the chat room there, but for the new listener, I'm wondering, do you think that the Sasquatch and UFO experiences are related?
I do. I absolutely do. I looked into it. This is another thing I got dragged into kicking and screaming after a gentleman from Canyon Country, a radiologist, told me about a UFO sighting that was linked with Bigfoot. He saw this UFO land in his backyard, and the very next day, there was a Bigfoot there. And he felt like he was reading its mind. He had a telepathic contact with it. His dogs were barking furiously. He could feel like this Bigfoot was angry at the dogs. And just a very strange case, because after that, he had a poltergeist break out in his house. So I'm like, okay. And I started to find other cases. I read about this. There's a number of cases like this in Pennsylvania. It's a small residue of cases. It's not all of them. And I have to tell you, most Bigfoot cases don't involve UFOs at all. I did a bunch of research into Sasquatch. And no, there's no UFOs really in the literature, really at all. There's some.
Then why am I hearing about this a lot? Maybe I'm just paying more attention to it then. It seems like...
No, these cases are rare, but they keep turning up.
Uh-huh.
And this is how I had my own encounter. It was actually the same lady who, I saw that darting orange light. This lady took me out to see a UFO on another occasion, one of the best sightings I've ever had. She lived out in Acton off the Los Angeles forest. She started having Bigfoot encounters. And she says the neighbors were complaining about it. You could hear it howling in the wash there, screaming like a woman being murdered, is how she described it. Very high-pitched.
Oh, my gosh.
She had this thing come up to her house. Her roommate saw it. Her son saw it. She saw it. It put a boulder on her roof, a very large rock. This is something they do. They throw rocks and things like this. And she's telling me all this. I went up there. I saw the tree where it was in, and it broke the branch. And she's like, I know where it lives. It's just, a couple of miles down this road. It's in that canyon. She felt like she could telepathically link with it to some extent. And we went there and around dusk with all our equipment, sound equipment and film equipment. And no sooner did we park and get out of the car when this thing roared really loud, not that far away. Completely freaked her out. She ran back to the car. I heard this thing roar again. And I can tell you, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't a bear, I don't think, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
It wasn't a bear. Surely, I've heard some of those on YouTube too, but I've also seen, and I've mentioned this earlier, where you hear the woman scream in the woods, or it sounds like a child or a woman screaming. It wasn't anything like that either, right? Because sometimes that's a fox. A fox will sound like when they scream, it sounds like a woman is screaming to the top of their lungs. I don't know if you've ever heard that or not.
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, so it could be that, but it seems like lately I've seen a lot of this relation. I'm not, at all the things I want to see, I'm just going to do a small confession here. I really don't want to see a Bigfoot, to be honest with you. I don't want to have an encounter. I don't care if they're benevolent. I don't want to see it. I mean, ever since I've seen, I like reading about it, talking about it, but I really, I went on a hunt at Board Camp Crystal Mine trying to see what I could see there, and I just, for some reason, that beef jerky commercial was just in my head. Like, this thing's going to come flying out of the woods and just tear my head off, and there's nothing I can do about it, And there is a lot of missing people, that you talk about, so I get a little paranoid when I'm out in the woods hunting for Bigfoot. I know that sounds crazy. I guess I feel safer on the ground looking at objects flying in the air. But
yeah, well, not all Bigfoot encounters are, benevolent. There's a number of hostile cases where people have knocked over and things like this.
Yeah,
kidnapped, and not necessarily a thing you want to mess around with, but definitely real. And there's a residue of cases that are very connected to UFOs. I'm not sure if they're aliens or there's a couple of cases where people have been seen these things inside UFOs. There was a Colorado case, in fact. Very bizarre.
Well, I mean, just before you tell us about this case, a lot of people, they get upset because, well, you're assuming that all aliens are evil. That's not a safe assumption. That sounds to me like a safe. It's not a safe assumption to assume that they're all nice and friendly and lovely and full of rainbows either.
Exactly. It's very much like people. I mean, how are you going to determine if humanity is benevolent or not? It'll be very difficult. And there's a similar situation, I think, to a certain extent with this ET phenomena. Because if that's what they are, and I think that's the best theory that fits what we're dealing with, statistically, I mean, they would be like us. And there'd be a bell curve of, some that are very selfish and have their own agendas, and others that are, not so friendly.
Not to mention the children. There was a case, and I don't know if you heard about it, where a bunch of kids in I think it was like Zimbabwe or something like that had an encounter with a ship, and they said it sounded like a flute or a hum, and the children saw a gray alien, and they all came running back to their school or camp or whatever it was. I've been kind of looking into this, so I don't have all the details, but all of the children were scared out of their mind, and they all reported the same thing. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I sure did. As far as I know, no one was hurt or anything, but it was a very well-witnessed case. There's a lot of cases around schools and schoolyards and children. It's pretty interesting. I think they're showing themselves on purpose to little groups at a time. I don't think it's an accident when these encounters occur.
Yeah, the reporter was like, what kind of eyes did it have? And they were like, it was big black eyes, and it pointed, and they were all scared. You could tell it was hard for them to talk about it. But when they said it sounded like they heard a flute or a hum, some of the kids said it was a high-pitched hum. Another kid described it as a flute. Do you get any cases about that where people hear, we've got this stuff, the trumpets or whatever, and I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina. Do you have any cases of that where it's making weird noises?
Yeah, I do. A lot of the time, people describe stuff that's perfectly silent. They hear nothing. I get second to that would be a low hum. People will sometimes say it's almost a musical hum. I had one lady describe what sounded like computer, like calculator sort of musical notes, different musical notes that were hover over home in association with bright lights and an actual object at one point. One guy said it was very loud, what he saw with a group of people, and it sounded like a blender. It was extremely loud. It caused them all to come running to see what it was.
It didn't sound like anything was in the blender, did it?
No, it was just a very loud object. But so you get all kinds of noises, low rumbling roars. By and large, what I hear is low buzzing of sort of a reverberating hum. That's the most common.
So this is perplexing me then. We've got all these cases with all these different situations. They all these different looks. Some are benevolent, malevolent, however you want to say that. Some look like this, some look like that. Some make these noises. Some are around Sasquatch and Bigfoot. Is there anything common? Is there any commonalities in all this? I know that's a weird, broad question, but I'm almost frustrated because there's not any commonalities other than people telling a story about an encounter,
Right. Well, there are commonalities. Here's one. The ET's message, about future disasters. That's echoed very much with near-death experiencers, as well as Native American elders, as well as out-of-body astral explorers. So that's a commonality. Another commonality is types of ETs seen are pretty much just a few major groups, and at least in my files. I think it's reflected in a lot of major researchers. There's the Greys, of course, with a large variation of Greys, the praying mantis, and the Nordic, and then the reptilians. Those are the major ones. But there's a catch-all category of short humanoids, light beings, some people call tall whites, robotic beings even. There's just a continuing parade of beings that are 100% unique. So it's very hard to categorize, but there is patterns. There's all kinds of patterns about how UFOs behave. We know that they're coming over mines. They hover over mines. We know they hover over graveyards, bodies of water, telephone lines, nuclear stations, any technological installation. They're very interested in that. We know quite a bit about their behavior more and more. So we're learning, what to expect when someone's taken on board. It's not that hard to predict. I've talked to a lot of people, and it's often not a whole lot new that they tell me.
Gotcha.
So we're getting there.
All right. Well, you know what? We're going to take our final break, and you guys don't go anywhere. We only got 1 hour left here on Spaced Out Saturday. I'm your host, Joe Roop. We'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on spacedoutradio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with UFO Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The opinions expressed by tonight's guest do not represent the opinions or position of Spaced Out Radio, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with SOR Media. Listener discretion is advised. Want more information about our programming? Check out spacedoutradio.com. You can follow our host, Joe Rube, on Twitter at Lighting the Void. Call in to tonight's show at 501-777-5631. Now, entering the radio ring from Arkansas, Spaced Out Saturday host, Joe Rube.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Saturday. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Don't forget, after the show, S4 comes on live. You can go to spacedoutradio.com to the link there, or you can go on Spreaker, search S4, as well as the Fringe FM. They'll be on right after the show. And tomorrow night, we're going to have Elizabeth Anglin on, and next week, Spaced Out Radio will be back. Don't forget, Spaced Out Radio is here for you 7 nights a week. Also, we could use your support to upgrade the studio. If you go to GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night, you can help us out there. If you any little bit of help, $5, $10, whatever you got. If you can't help, then share it. And I think we're halfway through the goal already, so we're doing really good, and we really appreciate all of you, because none of this would be possible where Spaced Out Radio is right now if it wasn't for you, the listener. Now, we're here with Preston Dennett, and we've been talking about, well, several things. We're on our Aliens Among Us Part 2 here for Spaced Out Saturday. And his new book, UFOs over Colorado, has been a pretty massive subject that we've talked about. But also, I wanted to get back to the UFOs in the water, Preston. To me, that when that pilot admitted that he saw something in the water, chased down an aircraft and it disappeared, went back and whatever was in the water was gone, that should have been a bigger story than the HUD video, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it should definitely have been televised along with it, I would think. Yeah, they've got a lot of information they're sitting on in this whole USO, underwater UFOs, unidentified submersible objects. It's a huge story. There's a lot of information that they're sitting on, and there's a lot of military people I've talked to, actually, who have had to deal with this exact phenomenon. I talked to a Coast Guard captain, had an amazing story. An electrician's mate on the USS Clamagore had an amazing story. Submarine navigator, he had an amazing story. So yeah, there's a lot of people coming out of the woodwork talking about this.
Yeg Megger from the Spreaker chat wants to know what Preston thinks of the UFO on the Temple Mount in Israel that happened a few years back. Let's see if I can... Yeah, it happened a few years back. Apparently it came down and zipped away. Did you hear about that?
I'm not sure I know the specific case that you're talking about, no. I couldn't say for sure. I know there was a case involving some interesting footage of what...
A large light object descended from the sky and hovered over the temple for a few seconds, then zipped back up into the sky. He was wondering if you thought maybe it was a hologram or a real UFO.
Hard for me to say without seeing it and talking to the witnesses. But, you know, I am a believer that most of these things are probably real objects, because doing a hologram is going to take equipment, and this, I don't think we have enough equipment to perform the level of sightings that we're seeing, the numbers of them, because these are all over the world. People are seeing them in places that wouldn't really matter, and they're not influential people. They're not going to report their sightings. It'll be a waste of time for the government to be sending off holograms. My guess is in most of these cases, yeah, we're dealing with a real phenomenon.
Yeah, I agree with you on that too. What do you think about the? Well, no, before I say I agree with you on that, you do know about SpaceX's satellite, that thing there. Everybody thought it was a UFO when they launched that, right?
The one over here recently?
Yes, and that, it was all over the web. It was really cool looking in the sky, and it kind of did look like some previous UFOs people reported. But Elon said that SpaceX, that was their launch, right? You remember that, right?
Yeah, if it's the one recent event that just happened maybe a month ago.
Yes.
Or so. Yeah, that was a rocket launch. It looked like a rocket launch. I've seen rocket launches. But who knows?
Here's the thing. They reported that they lost it. They lost it. Now, doesn't that baffle you? That a company that has that much technology and that much money, probably got the best state-of-the-art tracking devices in the known universe, and they just lost. They lost it.
Yeah, I think they're UFO interaction with a lot of these, a lot more than people realize. I wrote UFOs over New Mexico is when I first realized it. White Sands, which did a lot of rocket testing, had a real problem with UFOs over their rockets. And of course, we know about the Malmstrom case. This was a huge problem at China Lake. I collected a whole bunch of rocket cases across the world and found out, this is a thing. It's happened in China. UFOs are very closely monitoring our venturing into space to the point they're even monitoring toy rocket launches. There was a case in upstate New York where UFOs showed up after a toy rocket was launched. Another case like that in Nevada. I found another case in California involving a toy rocket, which to me shows the level of observation that these beings are at.
Well,
they're really
my whole point with that speculating that is that number one, I'm having a hard time I used to put rockets together when I was a kid and launch them. You know, they had the little parachutes that brought the engine back down, and sometimes you'd lose them, you know. But I'm having a hard time believing that these people lost this thing that they launched. And I think they launched something that up in space they don't want us to know about, and they're telling us that they lost it, possibly.
I don't know. It is surprising that we're still using rocket technology when we have probably the UFO technology. There's this whole secret space race going on. So it is frustrating and baffling, and I wonder about it. I don't think we're being told the truth. That's been the pattern, particularly in this area.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's a rush right now between us and China to try to get to the moon. You know, Trump just reopened the National Space Council that was opened by, you know, Herbert Walker Bush back in the day. That, you know, he was a big CIA guy, and all of a sudden Trump opens this thing up and says we need to go to the moon. I don't know. I forget if it was right before or right after the disclosure video, and now China's reporting that they're fixing to go to the moon, and it's all for base operations to make jumps to different. So they're wanting to set up something so they can jump to Mars as well. And Trump wants to take away this whole focus of satellites and all this stuff and move more focus onto space exploration. Now, all of this stuff happening at once, and then SpaceX launching something, oh, we lost it. What I'm saying is I'm going to get a little bit conspiratorial with you here. But money talks. We all know this. You know this too, right, Preston?
Oh, yeah.
And if the government comes to somebody that has, let's just say not NASA, but let's say Elon Musk, somebody that's got the technology already, it's almost like let's say they go to a man of Tesla stature that has technology that they don't even understand yet. Instead of trying to understand it and all this stuff, they can win the space race by just paying these cats to do their work for them. Now, I really believe that everybody's got a price. I hate to say that, but everybody's got a price. I know that sounds terrible to say that. But if the government offers you a few $1 billion, say, look, we want you to launch this up in space and let it go. I know you're doing this thing, but we want you to let this go, and then tell everybody you lost it. Well, no one's going to believe you that you lost it, but does that matter? It doesn't matter. You see what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and if they want to find somebody, you know, it's going to just be a matter of time where they're going to find someone who will do it, you know.
I'm really pulling my tinfoil hat out on this one. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't know. The thing about conspiracies is we don't have the evidence to back them up. Not now. But who's to say it's not true?
Well,
and
you're right, Preston. But to me, it's like when your kid comes home and he's got a black eye, and you say, "What happened?" I tripped and fell down. You know what I mean? You tripped and you fell down. Yeah, I fell down. No, somebody punched you in the eye. You know, you're lying. It just feels like a lie to me. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and that's been the pattern. And got to break that. Got to have more transparency in government.
Well. What is your opinion on the mutilation stuff? We've talked about that quite a bit on this show, on Spaced Out Radio. Do you have any reports of that?
Well, definitely Colorado suffers from it real bad. There's just, you know, New Mexico and Colorado are the ones that were probably hardest hit in the United States. And this is actually, Colorado is where it sort of first got attention paid to this. That was back... let me see, I believe that was 1967, yeah. And there was a horse, Snippy the horse. We now know the name was actually Lady. Was mutilated during a time that there was a UFO sighted.
Uh-huh.
Very, very strange case involving, you know, the mutilated body of this horse. There were no tracks around it. Predators wouldn't touch it. And a very typical case in a lot of ways. This was the first case that really got well publicized, and throughout the 70s, boy, Colorado was very hard hit. People lost a lot of money, and it's been a phenomenon that hasn't got a whole lot of attention. It did for a while throughout the 70s and 80s, thanks to the work of Linda Moulton Howe and other researchers, but it's died down quite a bit. While in fact it's still going on. people are still suffering from this. It hasn't stopped, and they don't know who's doing it. It's a very baffling phenomenon.
Well, what do you think, though? No, I'm not asking you what do you think is true, but what's your opinion on this? Do you think that this is government experience, alien experiments? I mean, some of the stuff that is happening in these mutilations is not only very grotesque, but it seems impossible.
Yeah, I feel pretty certain that a good number of these, at least, are alien mutilations where they're taking cattle up because they're harvesting genetic material. Maybe genes aren't easy to build as we might think they are. Perhaps they're not as advanced as we think they are, or they're getting some use out of this, obviously. There's been various theories to explain it. I think it's probably the genetic one. They're all about genes. But some people have noticed patterns where the highest concentration of abductions are very near where nuclear testing has taken place, which could be a pattern. Hard to say. But there's definitely black helicopters around some of these and what look like some government involvement. So it's hard to make complete sense of this, what's going on. I don't know exactly why the ETs are doing this. It's still a mystery that's ongoing, but it's definitely a huge problem in Colorado. Absolutely.
With all the people that claim to be doing astral travel nowadays and going around and going in these realms and talking to beings and all, you would think that we would have some answers by now. How is it, or why is it when let's say highly skilled astral travelers that go into these places aren't getting the answers that we still need here about mutilation, crop circles, even orbs? We still don't know. I mean, some people have what they think is the truth, or they claim is it, but I've never heard anybody say, look, I went in the astral realm, I talked to these aliens, and I'm not saying they haven't, I just haven't heard it, and this is what's going on here. This is what crop circles are about. This is what the mutilation is about. Like, why can't we ask those questions in the astral realm to these beings?
Right, I think people have tried to varying degrees. I haven't been able to do it. I tried to get to Area 51, and I landed there, and I chickened out and got pulled back into my body.
What do you mean? You got scared? I mean, you were scared at Area 51?
Well, I had landed there on the ground, and yeah, I'm like, wow, I've actually done this. I wasn't, I kind of thought I could do it, but to actually do it was, breathtaking and a little bit nerve-wracking. And often when I do this, if I feel too much emotion, I'll get pulled back in. And that's what happened. I thought about, I could see aliens now, and that gave me a kind of a chill. And I'm like, I'm going back.
What did you see when you were there?
I just landed out there on Groom Lake on the outside, and it was very huge. It was absolutely enormous. I saw people walking around dressed in kind of military fatigues. The buildings were much more farly spaced out than I thought they were. I'm wondering, how do they get from building to building here? This is ridiculous to have them so spaced out.
Uh-huh.
And it was a pretty short experience, though I did have a follow-up, which was kind of a dreamy experience where I was in there, and it was horrific. I went down to these dark levels where there were people.
You mean underground?
Yeah. I felt like I was in an giant underground mall. It's what it almost felt like. The energy was very dark, very creepy, and there were people there who had never come out. I saw someone who was being used as a worker and was genetically malformed and spent their entire life there. That was the impression I got from them.
Wow.
Horrific genetic experiments.
So you saw some bad experiments on humans, basically, is what you saw or felt.
Yeah, but it was a kind of a dream. Like I wasn't fully lucid or out of body. I think I was out of body, but I couldn't quite bring it back. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you've done this, you would definitely.
Yeah,
know
it's
what
hard
I mean.
to remember everything,
But yeah, I remembered some very clear images, and I certainly remember what it felt like down there from an energetic perspective. It was dark, and not nice, because people were being treated in ways that really, really made me angry. They were being treated basically as slaves, and were almost subhuman because they were so ignorant and not treated well.
That is a creepy place out there, isn't it? It really is. I looked at some of Tim Doyle's footage out there as he's driving around that place, and in fact, the footage that he had of Area 51 when he went up to the top of a mountain and scoped down to it, the buildings were really far apart, like you're talking about. They had to drive from building to building. You can see them driving from building to building, and there were deserted towns out there where it's like almost like they look like nuclear fallout towns where no one's ever been there. Just a really creepy place.
Yeah, the stories that come out of there aren't super pleasant, but they're pretty consistent. Definitely stuff is going on there.
But another thing that fascinates me, and I'm glad that you got into it, is the underwater UFO deal, where we were talking during the break, and I still don't know this to be true, but there's got to be still tons of ocean that hasn't been explored. And if you ever go on the Discovery Channel or watch anything that has to do with the ocean, you get down there, it looks like, there's aliens down there. There's some weird and crazy creatures in the ocean, and it does seem like everything is just a big, science experiment down there. But I'm wondering if there's any truth to this inner Earth thing. Because I've heard some creepy sounds and mines. I've heard all kinds of stuff about inner Earth. Is there a correlation between the two? Underwater ocean UFOs and inner Earth stuff? Have you heard anything about that?
Not specifically. I'm not sure that there is. As far as the hollow Earth theory, being hollow like a gumball, I think that's pretty much scientifically impossible. I don't want to fully commit to it, because the problem is there's quite a history of literature on this stuff, of people going underground into very large caverns and things like this, and seeing all kinds of crazy stuff. So there's definitely something to underground activity.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Not the hollow Earth thing, but the reports of stuff deep under, Mel's Hole obviously was one of the first. The reports of the North Pole where these guys were finding stuff there. And now, we've got people admitting, government pilots admitting they're seeing planes underwater or craft underwater that disappeared. They came back and it was gone. It just seems a little fishy to me, No pun intended.
I've got a case. These guys were driving along the highway in Fresno, California. They see this UFO. It's coming towards them. They're like, it's going to crash. It's absolutely going to crash on the highway. It turns off the highway and dives into the ground. I said it was as if the ground opened up. Not the only case like this. People see UFOs flying into the ground sometimes. Not only into the ocean as well. So they have this thing that they can do where they can push matter aside, very much like they do when they take someone, from their home through the wall or the ceiling. They kind of unphase matter. They turn it into, they freeze it in place or whatever it is they're doing. It allows them to penetrate matter, which is something that can be done on the other side, by the way. Permeability, it's called, and you can walk through brick walls if you're out of body, and this sort of thing. Might be a connection, but they've mastered this as a technology, and so probably do have underground bases in a number of places, and undersea bases, I'm guessing, probably one off the coast of California, just measuring by the level of activity. But I've got cases from across the world by some great witnesses.
Catalina's asking in the Spreaker chat, has Preston ever heard of the eel-like beings in the oceans? The eel-like beings in the oceans.
As far as ET-related eel-like beings, I can't say that I have. I heard that there were some underwater humanoids seen in that Russian lake, Baikal, I believe it is, the really deep lake. Had a bunch of UFOs coming in and out of it, and aquatic beings of some type. But eels, I haven't heard. I did talk to a Coast Guard captain who had a very unusual sighting with two other people. This was in a remote area, and they had just survived a very large storm and were coming in to shallower water when they saw these very strange glowing rings underneath their boat. And they thought maybe this was some unusual sea life, except the rings were perfectly formed and glowing bright blue. Not just glowing, I mean, they were emitting light, like glowing donuts. And one got really close under their boat, and they could see that it's actually like 15, 20 feet across or bigger. It was hard to tell. They must have seen 20 or 30 of them, and it only lit up as their boat passed over it. And he contacted me, wanted to know if this could be some type of sea creature. And I tried to identify it as one. I couldn't. It sounds like a typical kind of USO story to me. But eels, no, I haven't heard that one.
So is it your opinion that that this whole alien UFO experience is an experience of consciousness or just enhanced technology that involves consciousness and matter? Because it seems to me like this is why we're not getting a lot of the answers, and this is why the secret is so covered up. Like Whitley Strieber says, the truth is so massive and huge that it's been kept. It's unbelievable, and through everything that he's been through, he's coming to this whole thing has to do with consciousness and what happens after death. I mean, and that's incredible to me. All of his stories, the communion, everything, and now he's coming to this conclusion. Do you think that that's what this is all about? I mean, maybe we on this life, like in our physical lives, is probably just such a great illusion that ultimate reality is nothing but consciousness. I don't know, but that's kind of what I'm getting from it.
There does seem to be a big push towards, unifying this. Consciousness seems to be a unifier in all these phenomena. Someone comes away from a near-death experience spiritually transformed. Same happens with out-of-body stuff. The same happens with UFO experiences. They gain this awareness of the other side, and this sort of thing. So I think there is something to the whole consciousness aspect. Some people take this even a step further and say, we live in the Matrix. And reality is composed of thought, and that this is how we're manifesting stuff. And UFOs aren't aliens at all. It just wears masks that responds to consciousness and things like this. And this is a theory kind of popular with John Keel, Jacques Vallée, and becoming increasingly popular. But I don't know. It's hard. I still think that we're dealing with extraterrestrials like us, but different.
Physical beings on a physical realm, flying physical craft in our, I guess you could say, dimension, right?
Right, but go into the other dimension and have an understanding of it, and are able to, do things that look like magic to us and interdimensional, and probably are, but that doesn't make them any less, extraterrestrial. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know how they're building these UFOs. We don't understand exactly how the out-of-body experience works. We don't understand how all these phenomena are connected, but they clearly are. And consciousness does seem to be something that is, present in all of these experiences, and important to it in some manner.
Yeah, I bring that up because that's basically what the NASA physicist who came up with HemiSync for Robert Monroe told me, that it was all basically, it's all a big Matrix video game type thing, and there's different dimensions and different levels of consciousness. But in fact, everything in reality is ultimate consciousness, which kind of goes back to the old Hermetic thing where all is mind, But it doesn't take away from the reality of our realm, We live in an experience now. Just because you have a different experience on a psychedelic or something or in a dream, it doesn't really mean, to me, it doesn't mean that it's not real.
Exactly. Because, if you go out of body and you do these astral travels, you can reach to the upper dimensions and you can create anything absolutely lifelike in the snap of a finger, and it looks perfectly real. And it is composed of consciousness. And it proves to you that, in fact, that's true. Physical world is composed of thought to some degree. I mean, we formed it. The illusion of space is just that. It's an illusion. And the real world is actually, in the higher dimensions. This is a sort of a pale reflection of that.
I thought about you when I was interviewing Wayne Bush last week on Lighting the Void. He was talking to me. We were doing he has that website, trickbythelight.com. The whole don't go to the light thing because it's a trick, and then Whitley Strieber was the one that started that John Lear reported to Art. So I went down that road, talked to Whitley again, and he said, the light's not a trick, but, there are beings of light. You can go into the light. That's okay, but when you get at a certain level, none of that's going to matter anyways. But what I thought about was that story when you were on Art Bell right before he quit, when you had helped this little girl in the astral realm. I guess you couldn't find her mother or something. And you were trying to take her to the higher dimensions or get her back to where the little girl, felt safe again, and she just disappeared. And that happens in Robert Monroe's books as well, where, he's guiding these beings up into the higher realms and they just dissipate, right?
Right.
So I thought about that. And I thought about, okay, well, if the light's a trick and all these people are dissipating into the light, are they just all going back to just one big ball of consciousness, You understand what I'm asking here?
I do, and I wouldn't worry about it. I had an experience.
Don't worry about it.
I went into the light because I was curious, and you read about it. This is so close to a near-death experience, but you're able to control it even to a better degree than generally a person can during an NDE. And I went into this bright light, and it was beautiful and loving, and it was a loving force, very divine, and it feels great. And as far as, run away from the light, well, good luck, because once you get into the other side, the heavenly dimensions, it's composed of light. The flowers glow, the grass, the sky, the trees, everything's glowing like a lit-up billboard. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. It's made of light. So you're in it, and you're composed of it, and it feels great. I wouldn't worry about it.
But you still remain. My biggest question, and I guess I could say fear about that is do you go through the second death? The second death meaning you just go back to consciousness and go back to the all oneness or whatever, and then you can come back as, break away from the light as a small light being again, and then come back to this earth, and you kind of forget about your past life unless you go through a regression and you finally figure out. You see what I mean? It's like losing the memory of who you are now. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Are you just really just dropping your ego? It's very perplexing to me.
Yeah, it brings up the whole subject of past lives, because I don't want to lose who I am now and go and be somebody else. Not particularly, not right now. But it's my understanding, that your consciousness continues, and past lives are sort of related to you, and not necessarily you, and that you remain an individual for as long as you want. But I don't know, we'll see. It's something that's very intriguing, particularly because of this whole telepathic aspect in consciousness. And ETs are all about telepathy and oneness, the rule of one. We're all one. This is something that becomes really obvious when you do out-of-body stuff. You become very empathetic, and it's hard to separate your feelings from other people.
Mm-hmm. It makes me wonder if you're just actually a higher being playing a smaller role. What are those things called? And it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it, where it's like a little egg, and then you open it up, and there's another egg inside it, and you open that up, and there's another one and another one. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like the Russian nesting dolls.
Right. Okay, so your whole reality is that doll, the biggest part. But right now, what you're playing is one of the smaller eggs inside of that thing. That's kind of that's kind of the gist of what I'm getting from all this. After reading some of, like I said, Robert Monroe's books, William Buellman's material, even, looking at some of your work, Whitley's work, studying the esoteric teachings, it's like we're trying to come back to our higher self, but that's just ultimate consciousness, really, in all reality.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. I don't know how it's all going to go down when we go to the other side. I'm very interested to do it because having kind of been there before, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I expect I will meet my relatives. I already have. So that's, I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's so darn nice there that just pales in comparison here.
Nesting dolls. Yep, that's what they're called.
Yeah, we're the skin of onions. Peel one layer at a time.
Yeah.
Try not to cry.
Right. Yeah, that's what I feel like that. Because when you look at Robert's books and his first journeys out of the body, he kept running into these beings that would help him out. Right. And have you read his books at all?
Oh yeah, I studied him.
So he keeps running into these beings in his first books that help him along the way when he goes through all these tribulations in the astral realm. I mean, he encounters some crazy things that attacked him and, smothered him and jumped on him, and these beings would come along and gently help him, and he would go on his way, only later on to find out that he was those people. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all very interesting.
Kind of nutty. We're going to find out one way or the other, though. But I don't like the whole thing like, oh, you're not going to know anyways. Just drink your beer and watch the Super Bowl. Don't worry about it. That bothers me, Preston.
Oh, I love it. I think people should try to do this. If you can remember what's going on at night, it expands your lifespan by 1/3. You're having all these experiences every night. It's time that people realize what they're actually doing. They're out there on the other side having all kinds of fun. They don't even remember.
How good are you at this now? At astral travel, are you better at it than you was before?
Yeah, absolutely. I do step by step. Been a couple of months since I've had a good one. I popped out about a month ago. Tried to call for deceased relatives, and none of them came to me, and I lost consciousness. But when I focus on it, boy, I've been making all kinds of strides, doing stuff. I was able to, examine my body more closely. I was talking to you about how I was able to go up close to my physical body while out of body and walk around the bed and do this sort of thing. And I'm slowly getting better, and it's really just a matter of focusing on it and taking the energy to do it. But right now I'm just so busy working and writing and doing this UFO stuff, I've slowed down a little bit.
I try to do it every single night I go to bed. But some nights, and correct me if I'm wrong here, some nights it's almost like I know I'm going to do it for some reason before I lay down.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Usually I do it on weekends when I'm really relaxed and wake up in the middle of the night. But there's been times I've gone to bed and I just lay down and suddenly the vibrations hit, the vibratory state. I don't know if you felt that, but when you do this, you relax enough. Yeah, it's like an electric shock, really.
It's a buzzing feeling to me.
Yeah, I just laid down and boom. Recently, this is something I never did before. I was laying there in bed and suddenly felt the vibrations, and I hadn't actually relaxed, gone to sleep or anything. I was just laying there. My eyes were open. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this with my eyes open. And I actually did it. First time I ever did that. Usually I just shut my eyes there for a second because it's a little scary, a little disorienting. But no, I just kept my eyes open, and it was wild.
You kept your eyes open the whole time?
Yep. And
what?
You're there in the physical, you're looking at your bedroom, and then you pop out, and there's a slight blurry, but not really, it's a clearing, and suddenly everything becomes that weird glowy quality you get when you're out of body. I
got to try that.
Slightly glowy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Elizabeth is asking, you don't, she's asking if you have a day job in the Spreaker chat. You're not required to answer that, but I guess that she wants to know.
Oh, yeah. No problem. Yeah, I do. I work as a bookkeeper. I've done it for too long, 35 years. It's really boring, really. It's not bad.
Number cruncher, huh?
But, yeah. And it's nice. I work with a lot of people. I've got a number of UFO stories that way. People are really open to this subject. My bosses have never given me a problem. Some have been very interested in it. But, yeah, I have to work, unfortunately. I do this at night and on weekends. So, yeah, it consumes a lot of time. Cuts into my TV watching and sitting around.
Man, Dennis says that sounds more like a heart attack than an OB, out-of-body experience. It is freaky. It is scary when you first do that for the first time, though, isn't it? It's really scary.
Well, the first time I thought I died, honestly, and I was trying to do it, preparing, and I'm doing the exercises, and I popped out, and I'm like, oh, this is bad. And I became consumed with terror. It's called the fear barrier. It can be really tough for people, and it's pretty common, and I sure hit it. But just that once. After that, I was so excited, and each time I'd pop out, I was overcome with excitement, and that became a problem. I really couldn't even remain conscious for more than a second.
Because you would get too exciting? You would get too excited?
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, I'm doing it! Boom.
That makes sense, man. It really does.
I persisted, and I got good at it. I could walk around the house, through the walls. I started flying around the house. I would always avoid telephone wires when I was flying around. And finally, I'm like, you know what? I'm not physical. I'll be fine. And I'd fly through them. And they went zit, zit. Saw a little bit of light the first few times, and then it stopped. But, yeah, I just got slowly better and better by persisting.
So what's the secret to staying out long? You know, other than what I've heard is make sure you're comfortable, make sure that you've got your bladder, all done so you don't get sucked back to your body because you got to go to the bathroom, any of that stuff. But when you get out, I guess the one thing I would say, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, is don't even think about. Try not to think as much as possible. Seems like the more you think, I don't know. It seems like the more I think, the more I can't do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, how I do it is how Robert Bruce recommended. It's something that just spontaneously happened. I'm like, I'm doing it. And I just constantly say, okay, I'm out. And I focus entirely on what I'm looking at and not inside my head, right? I'm fully focused on outside of me and focusing on what's most interesting. And because it's very easy to lose consciousness. It's like walking a tightrope. And you can feel yourself getting dizzy and losing consciousness very easily, and there are techniques. You can spin. That sometimes helps.
What do you mean spin?
Or like spin around like Wonder Woman, spin in a circle.
Uh-huh.
That will keep you, if you're falling out of it, getting pulled back.
Oh, I got to write this down. Just a second.
Yeah, that keeps you out. It's a really good technique. It actually works pretty well. Spinning. I like Buhlmann's technique, clarity, calling for clarity. That works well too. There's various techniques. I like to try it and just go for the other side, because that's where the farther away you get, the longer you can kind of remain consciousness sometimes, at least for me. Once I pop over on the other side, I'm like, okay, I'm there. Good, I'm doing it. I'm good now. Otherwise, I could fall very easily into a dream.
That's the next question I was going to ask you. I'm sorry that I took this into astral travel, by the way, but I mean, you're one of the guys that does this constantly, so I'm going to ask you this stuff, right? I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I love it. Are you kidding? I love it.
Okay, so you just said I got to be careful I don't fall into a dream, right? Well, one time I got out and I could see myself sleeping, and I walked around in my living room, and I went back to where my son was. He's always back there playing video games, but he was actually asleep. So why am I seeing my son play video games? So then I started questioning myself, am I in a dream or am I out of my body? Are there any signs and signals that tell you that you're going into a dream instead of actually being out of your body? How do you tell?
Yeah, it's very hard. This is like the difference between a lucid dream and an out-of-body experience. With an out-of-body experience, the environment you perceive around you is perceived as being external to you and not connected to your mind. But when you pop out of body, you start to create mental projections very easily by just thinking about them. So you can pop out of body in your living room. It doesn't look quite the same. There'll be a table there that's not normally there.
Right.
Or things like this. Or it can be slightly off the time aspect. You can see something that just happened. Or might or will happen. So future events, the time is off. It's very, very interesting.
Or maybe he was dreaming about playing video games, and that's why I saw him in there. I don't know.
And you can talk to people who are asleep, and they'll start talking to you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I got to tell you mine real quick, and then you can tell me one, okay? Here's the thing. My dad is a very smart-aleck person, right? And I talk to him about this a lot, you know. And I got out of my body once, and this is all of the same. It's the same time. I've done this like maybe 4 or 5 times, but it's one of the moments. And I went back there and I talked to my dad. I went to his house and into his room, and I talked to him while he was asleep. And I said, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" And he said, "What?" And I said, I'm asleep in my bed, but I'm here too." And he's like, "What?" And I said, "I'm out of my body." And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "So what are you doing it for?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm just standing here." And he was like, "Wow, you know, real interesting." That's how I knew it was Dad, because he's a smart aleck, you know, like big deal. But
right.
But he don't remember saying that to me. But then my question is that my projection, or did he really say that to me in his dream state?
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's a certain quality when you're out of body and you meet somebody, and it kind of like look into their eyes and you're like, wow, you know, this is really that person. And there'll be projections and you're like, they're kind of wooden-eyed or wall-eyed or just not quite there. It's hard to tell sometimes, honestly, but I've had that same experience with my brother and my sister. I came up to them. I'm like, "I'm out of body." I'm like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, and you are too." You know, this is when they were out of body and I saw them. And they're like, "Oh, really?" And they were only partially aware. And I'm like, are you going to remember this when we wake up? And we argued about this. In both cases, I argued with my brother and my sister. And she's like, "No, I'm not going to remember this. I know that." And so I created a thought form of a UFO. Honest to God, a beautiful flying saucer. I'm like, and I was good at it. And little lights all over it. She's looking at it. We're like, wow. I'm like, "That looks cool. Don't you see that? You'll remember that, right?" And she's like, "No." And she didn't.
Nope.
And my brother, I argued with him. I'm like, "You will remember this. I'm going to make you remember this. You know, you've got to remember this." And he's like, "I'm not going to remember. Leave me alone." And I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. Because how can you know you're not going to remember? How aware are you? What is going on here? So, you know, I understand your confusion when you're talking about this. I'm like, what is this real? How real is this? Because it's hard to say. I just know other people have experienced this. And I do believe it's real.
Don wants to know in the Spreaker chat, have you ever fallen asleep and still yet projected out of body?
Absolutely. I think if I understand the question correctly, sometimes what happens is I'll just fall asleep and suddenly, you know, sometime later, I wake up and I'm like, well, where am I? And I slowly gain awareness. I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the other side, you know, in the heavenly realms. Or that's usually what happens. Sometimes I'll be in the corner of my room or something, or I'm lying somewhere on the floor in the living room. Things like that. That has happened.
I think I do it every night because I wake up sometimes and have just faint memories of me trying to fly. But that's all I remember, you know.
Yeah, my guess is we all do this every night. I think this is what most, or certainly many, of the astral travelers who do this regularly will say, and people who've studied this. It's a natural human talent. There's no special talents needed to do it. Everyone's doing it. It's really a process of focusing and remembering. It's all about memory. So if you want to be successful at it, the best way is to keep a dream book and work on dream recall. That's a very great approach. You should be able to remember at least 4 or 5 dreams a night. And then you're primed to do this really well.
Dream journal, yeah, that's some good solid advice there. What about, have you seen elementals in the astral realm, like gnomes or fairies or anything like that?
I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I've had a few bizarre experiences. Let me see. I'd say one interesting one was you pop out of body and I'm trying to get to the other side and something grabs my foot, my ankle there, and I can feel it. It's got 4 fingers, long, webby fingers around my ankle of this tiny little creature. And I'm like, well, what's this? And I'm like, this is interesting. And I reached down and I felt its hand, and it was, I don't know, not human. And I peeled its fingers off, and I went on my way.
God, dude. You didn't get scared? You're like, what's that?
Yeah, I'm very focused when I'm out of body. And I feel, I've always just felt I was safe. Felt like I'm not physical. Nothing's going to hurt me. What's the worst that can happen? I get a little scared. I'll get pulled back to my body. And I think that's true. I scoured the literature, Joe. I searched for any evidence of dangers to this.
I understand.
And I found the opposite. People are healed. It's a little scary. Yes, absolutely. But you're not going to get locked out of your body. You're not going to get lost. You're not going to get possessed. Nothing like that is going to happen. You've got the silver cord that draws you back. You've got spirit guides that protect you. You're not physical when you're out of body. You can't get hurt. And any emotion will draw you right back.
Gotcha.
It's as safe as sleeping, as far as I can tell.
Can you do me a favor? The next time you get out of body, can you come to my house and pull me out of my yard? Just get me over the barrier. Is that possible?
It is. I've tried to do this.
Look at me and say, Joe, just walk over here. Just come past the tree line. Get me out of here. I've seen the whole yard back and forth. I'm bored with it.
It's funny. That's how I started, and I had that similar problem. I was in my backyard, and I started to walk down the street, and I got inch by inch farther. I got all the way to the end of the road. That's when I started to really break free into doing it. But yeah, I can try. I tried this with a guy. I never succeeded. I did succeed with my sister, partially with another brother. But it's difficult. I've never been satisfied with the results of this experiment of trying to meet someone out of body. Would love to try that, though.
A lot of people do it. And I've, like I said, I read Monroe's book where they all, even now to this day, they'll meet up at the Crystal Statue at the Monroe Institute. And I tell people in the chat room, like, look, we got to find a place to meet up in the astral realm. There's teams that do it and stuff, but I'm just talking about, like, the regular average people where we can start learning together, and have a meetup spot or something. Somewhere where, everybody can go to. I don't know if that's even possible, but, from some of the stuff I've read, there's people that go on journeys together to other planets and other realms and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I'm game. I want to try it. Absolutely. Yeah, if they can do it, I can do it. That's the way I've always kind of felt. I read all these books. I'm like, hey, they rescued a lost soul. I'd love to try that. Hey, this person went out of body to Area 51. Why can't I? So I'm all for it.
I'm telling you guys, I can see some of the stuff in the chat room. You guys that have problems with this, there's an audio book on Audible that William Buellman made. It's called How to Have an Out-of-Body Experience. Todd Akamesis told me the same thing. I read Robert Monroe's books. I tried the Gateway Experience, and I didn't get out of my body until I got that audio. That audio will help even I would say even the first beginner do it. It doesn't matter who you are. If you really, he just has a way of talking to you, man, that keeps you awake while you're falling asleep, if that even makes sense.
Yeah, it's all a matter of focusing. That's what I found. If I obsess myself with it, if I pull all my books out and I start reading them and I really, really meditate, it's all about meditation and being aware, critical thinking. You always want to look around you at all times to see if you're dreaming at all times. Look for anomalies, test the waking state. Do you now have the ability to fly? And try to fly. And maybe you can't, but one of these days you're going to leap up and fly around at work, and you'll realize you are already out of body.
Yeah.
So there are various techniques like that, critical thinking.
Samael Aunvior, the Gnostic teacher, has a book that's called Dream Yoga, and that's what they call it, or that Gnostic group calls it Dream Yoga. And he would tell you the same thing. It's interesting you say that. Lets me know that you know what you're talking about even more, because he would tell people, look, I know it's going to sound stupid, but go out in your yard every day and try to fly. Don't worry about what your neighbors think. or whatever, just try to fly, you know, and then one day you'll be dreaming and do it, and you'll realize that, you know, it'll help you realize your state of consciousness, that you're actually out of body. There's a ton of methods, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. And they all work really well. I mean, that method is great because it's so shocking when it finally happens and you're like, oh my God, I'm flying. And I thought I was at work and I'm not. You know, the scene might fade away and you find yourself in your bedroom dreaming and flying through the ceiling. Yeah, it's absolutely wild and so worth the effort. I think it's very much like learning a musical instrument, very much like learning how to maybe learn a new computer program.
Are there tests that you do to like, do you go look at, I've heard people say they go look at clocks and stuff like that to make sure it really happened or whatever, but sometimes I'll look at a clock and it'll just be all jumbled up.
Yeah, reading I found is quite challenging out of body. It's very interesting to try and focus on words. And I've had them run around in circles. I've had them enlarge and disappear, jumble around. It's amazing how it reacts, but I'm still working on that. I'm getting better at it.
Well, we've got a few minutes here left in the show. I want everybody to, you know, grab your new book. That is the UFOs over Colorado. Is it out and ready for anybody to get right now?
Yeah, it is. I've got a couple of new books out. UFOs over Colorado, Inside UFOs, Not From Here, volumes 1 and 2. Those are all my newest books. Next year I'm putting out another book about underwater UFO activity. Probably another volume of Not From Here. And definitely keeping busy.
And it's at PrestonDennett.weebly.com?
That's right. That's my website. You can just Google my name. That'll take you there. And you can contact me through my website. I always love to hear from people. I'm doing research on UFO healings now, and would love to hear more cases about that sort of thing.
Yeah, we might we might actually do a show about how to astral travel, like Lindsay's talking about in the chat room, and maybe bring on like you, maybe William Buellman, and you know whoever else talks about it, so everybody can try their own things. I think it just takes a lot of. Everybody's got an experiment until they find their method, right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I kind of read all the books and tried all the methods and found my own kind of simpler method. I think it's really all about relaxation. It's about wanting to do it. It's about not giving up and really seeing how much it will transform your life. Boy, if people knew just how fun it was to fly, they would drop everything. They would quit their jobs and say, you know what, I'd much rather do this. I don't care. The benefits are unbelievable.
Yeah. Wow, she said, Lindsay says she had a cousin who does it. Her sister ran away from home at 14, and he found her, and she woke up as he came to her and saw him. That's pretty incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely leads to psychic awakenings and connecting to people. I can't tell you how many times I've seen deceased loved ones in the reunion. The feeling is unbelievable. It's great. And you'll see people who are out of body and don't know it within your family. That's always interesting. You can visit your pets. You can visit your higher self or learn about past lives, the Akashic higher planes. Those are harder to get to, but boy, it took me a long, long time, but I got to some really high levels that I could barely keep awake at. It was just too bright, too much energy.
Preston, it's really fun talking to you. It's always fun having you on the show. I'm really thankful that you came out to Spaced Out Saturday with us. Hope I can have you back on again sometime, man.
Hey, you got it. Always a blast.
Thanks, man. All right, we're going to get out of here, guys. That was Preston Dennett. Go get his new book, UFOs Over Colorado. Just look him up on the web. He's got a ton of books. Great, great material. It's been fun tonight, guys. Maybe we'll see you in the astral realm, huh? Hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, at Lighting the Void on Twitter. Don't forget S4 is next. We'll see you guys next weekend.
one who needs answers.